And thank you for tuning into this very important video. It is with great excitement that I introduce you to someone who was my roommate, my good friend, my sister sannyasi back in the cult of Nithyananda that I've escaped. It's been a while on my YouTube channel since I've introduced somebody who left that cult who hasn't publicly spoken out before. You've seen a few repeat interviews with people who have been whistleblowers for the past couple of years. You've seen my last interview with Stephen, who it was his first time speaking on YouTube, but he has been a major part of the exposure movement for basically since it started. But today, like I said, I'm so happy to introduce you to somebody extremely brave for coming forward despite all the character attacks done against some of us. Her story is compelling, it's wild, it has lots of plot twists, and I think she's the first person I'm speaking to on YouTube who was actually in South America with the fraud after he escaped India. So without further ado, Lanie, thank you so much for opening up with me today and sharing your story.
Hi,
Hi,
Vera. Thanks for having me on.
it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
So,
I felt it's been some time, since I've come out of the cult, but I really wanted to make sort of an official statement, official, whatever that means. But I wanted people, especially that I knew, and also people who might be considering getting out or going in, to just know what they're up for, to know like what my experience was over the years, and hopefully take a step back and really don't listen to all of the, you're going to ruin your spiritual development, or you're going to never be enlightened, or you're, going to lose the guru, or all those things, but actually really look inside and also look at all of the evidence that is there. So yeah, I just wanted to say, I wanted to express that and share that with everybody.
yeah, I appreciate that. And you're right. I think what a lot of people who watch these videos without having been in the cult wonder is why don't more people leave? And how you mentioned, like, not focusing solely on all the fear mongering done by Niti and by his minions, where they say you'll be committing guru droha if you leave, or it's abusing the master if you listen to people speaking out against him, and you'll never find another guru for 1,000 janmas. Like all that stuff, all that rhetoric that they would fill our heads with really instills that fear where people think that they may not like it, what they experience in the cult. They may hate it. They may be getting abused, yelled at, beaten, sexually assaulted, but they think, despite all those negative things, that they have no other choice because
Yeah.
if they leave, they're screwed. So I think it's awesome for you to come forward and show that when you leave, you're still alive, you're still breathing, you're still happy, probably a shit ton happier than you were there.
I'm definitely very grateful, and it does prove that some, compassionate, loving energy is with me because of how I actually ended up leaving and everything. It was just really a miracle, and I'm pretty grateful, to be safe and out of there. So yeah.
Wonderful. So I think for the sake of introduction, let's take our viewers back to the beginning. If you can tell me a little bit about, it feels so weird interviewing you because we were roommates and know each other so well, but I'll ask you shit that I already know. So where are you from? In which year did you find the fraud who calls himself Nithyananda? And what kind of led you to believe in him?
Sure. Well, I'm from the US, Chicago. That's where I was born and raised. And basically, I think I was sort of a seeker, but not, I would never admit that. I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school. Then I went to college, got a degree. I had, many different jobs. And at the career I was in IT sales. And I just purchased a house on my own during, the real estate crisis. So I got like an excellent deal on a house, and, my family was helping me fix it up and everything. And it was like a great opportunity for me. And I was just thrilled to have it. And I was doing really well in my job. But I kind of did feel there was something missing. Okay, that's one thing. And I was sort of seeking, like I was looking into Buddhism and shamanism, because I connect a lot with the earth and earth energies. Or I could just say basically with earth, I'm a big hiker and outdoor person. I was never into any woo-woo-y kind of, like I didn't study like with the energy healers or anything like that, but I was kind of interested, in learning the general things about it. Okay, so there's that, I was seeking, but there was definitely something missing, because in my life I did feel I was looking for answers, basically like a lot of other seekers have. Simple things like, why are we here? What are we doing here? What's the purpose of life? All of those things. I just felt like, well, I'll probably never get these answers till I die, and go to wherever, And so there was that happening. And also there was something I felt missing in my life. And I was a bit down at that point. Working in a high stress job, there were a lot of perks, and there was a lot of things involved with it. And one thing was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of free parties and like, sports games and concerts and happy hours, and all those things were going on. So I just felt like I was getting really involved in too much of that. And just that was a result of, traumas and things that happened in my life. And I was medicating, it was a whole cycle. But at that point, I was really in a vulnerable space. And I just felt like I need something. I really wanted help to change my life and to sort of move into something new, which is why I really started seeking into shamanism and other things. And then right around the time I was buying my house and, going through closing, two friends of mine said, hey, we're going to some program in India. Now they were studying yoga and other things, and I kind of did a little yoga, but I was never really that into it. Anyhow, so they told me about this guru that came to the Chicago area, one of the temples. They went to a program, and they started to tell me about their experience there. How they had a Kundalini awakening, and, and they told me the effects of it and all of this thing. And I'm thinking, well, what are they talking about? I had no clue. And I just kind of thought they were borderline, okay, not nuts, but, like I wasn't really into it, at that point. So then all of a sudden they're going to India after just a couple of months of going to the program, meeting them. They're going to go and spend $5,000 each to go to India to this inner awakening program. I thought, are they nuts? Because here, like I just bought a house and I'm putting my money into it. And like, I couldn't fathom why someone would do that. So, but when they came back, like I can tell, some positive changes. I could tell they were different. They told me about whatever spiritual experiences they had. It seemed pretty legit and kind of interesting. So then, one time they had me watch like a satsang, and it just didn't resonate with me. Something actually creeped me out about him.
Wow.
Nithyananda, to be honest. And so whatever, I just kind of never bothered with it. And then I think I did a meditation thing with them before. And I kind of felt something, but I didn't really I just wasn't wanting to get into it, So then a year after that, so this was like 2011, I just felt like I kind of reached my wit's end where I really wanted to do something. And I really didn't know where to turn, because I didn't believe really in counseling or other things like that, because I didn't feel it ever really worked and whatever. So I felt like I really needed help. And so then I heard about this program in Ohio, at the Ohio temple they were having, like that LEP1 was one of their 2-day earlier programs where you would pay and, go to this program basically. So that's where it began. She kept, asking me to go, and I never wanted to. And I decided, let me try this because I need some help. So basically that's how it started. So I went to the temple, and it was just really weird because the program was overnight, because it was day in India, and we're always waiting around for him to come on, and it was like kind of a big drama all the time, and, trying to stay up all night for a program. So you're kind of already tired and, waiting around like hour or two after he says he's going to be on, then he goes back. And then they had us do all those kriyas and things, which are the breathing techniques, pranayama and all those things. And I did have a spiritual experience there, you know, like where I did feel some energy movement, which in my life, I've never really experienced that. So I thought, wow, you know, this must be something. And of course, they're all talking it up, you know, and saying how great he is and he's this enlightened master. I didn't even know what any of this stuff was, you know. But I listened, and they just kept, you know, telling all about him. And then he talked to us at the end, you know, and he asked, you know, what do you want and stuff. And I just remember saying, I'm just looking for what is my purpose, you know, what am I supposed to be doing with this life? And he's like, you know, I'll help you or something, he said, you know. And of course, like I felt like, wow, here's somebody who's going to help me. And I felt like I had a Kundalini experience. If people don't know what that is, it's basically, you know, in the Hindu tradition, Eastern traditions, you're probably more eloquent at explaining this, but we all have, you know, a sleeping energy at the base of our spine, you know, and at some point in our life, it can be awoken, which leads you to higher states of consciousness, basically, in a nutshell. So I thought this happened to me, and I was researching on it. And I thought, wow, if this happened to me, because that's what he claims, that he's awakening your Kundalini, that's really special. And as a result of that class, like I decided that I was no longer going to drink, you know. So that was kind of big for me in my life, basically the lifestyle that I had. Like I changed my lifestyle then moving forward. Like I started to become more vegetarian. You know, I changed my lifestyle into doing more yoga, meditation, and then every night I would watch him. So it was like, keep on, you know, watching him. And I became like addicted. Like I had to watch him every night, and he kept saying it's the best thing for you, for your spiritual growth. And so I believed, you know, that. And so I kept doing it. And so I thought as a result of him and his program that, you know, I quit my addiction or whatever, you know, was going through. So I felt so much gratitude because they said, you know, how everything is because of him. You know, he does all this for us, you know. And so I thought, wow, it must be the real deal. And so then, of course, they're hounding me to go to Inner Awakening, you know. And I was, you know, going to go that year, like in the fall, but I just bought this house, you know, and there was repairs and things to be done. And obviously my parents didn't, you know, thought it was nuts because wasting that money on something like that and I thought they were just trying to be practical, but they didn't understand that I had to go through the spiritual process. So I was going to postpone it. And then I got a call from somebody. And not only that, the people from LA Temple kept calling, you know, and talking to me and trying to, of course, using those tactics, right, to get you to go to their programs and get more involved. So then somebody from Los Angeles Temple called me, and I think, and I could remember her name, it's one of the sannyasis, the earlier ones that's been there a while, who did a lot of the causing from over there. Can't remember.
No, there's so many of them.
But she specifically is like, you know, you have to go because next year he's talking about not even going to be leading the program. So you won't be able to have the program directly with him if you don't go now. You'll just have some acharya, which means teacher. And it won't be him directly, and you really miss out on that experience and all of this. And I thought, wow, you know, because I felt like there was something special or important, you know, about meeting with the guru from what I was reading, you know, like I read, you know, Swami, help me.
Yogananda?
Huh?
Yogananda's book?
Yeah.
Yeah, Autobiography of a Yogi.
Autobiography of a Yogi. I'm like, I forgot names sometimes lately.
I do that too. Yeah.
And I was reading because I wanted to understand, well, what is this mean with the guru? Because they kept saying, you know, he can work on you from wherever you are, and he knows you better than you know yourself, and all of these things. And so I thought, whoa, you know, something really bizarre and important was going on. So anyway, I'm already, I guess, making a long story short, you know, trying to make it a little short.
No, it's good. I appreciate that you're going into the specific details, because I think this is what a lot of people don't understand, is that, like, I just want to sum up everything you've said so far, if that's okay with you, Lanie.
Sure.
Because it's such a it's such an important shift that went on in your inner space from initially a couple of your friends go to this program in India and it sounds a little crazy, and they convince you to watch this teacher and he creeps you out. But because of their conviction that he is legit and that he's helped them, you were willing to just see. And I think this is how so many people get sucked into destructive cults, is that we have this belief that if we flat out say no to something without trying it first, we're closed minded. And so why not just go see, well, okay, there are problems in my life, maybe this can help me, I'm going to go find out. And so even though it's like your initial intuitive reaction was that Nithyananda was creepy and it wasn't for you, and you didn't want to waste thousands of dollars going to India when you had other priorities in your life, it sounds like that big shift happened when you went to the LBP 2-day program in Ohio Temple. And it's such a clear pyramid structure, or a funnel that leads people into a lifetime huge financial and huge personal time commitment, so similar to Scientology, where they get you in the door for something free like the daily satsang, and then they convince you to go to one of the centers for a program that's a couple $100. So you go, and the way you described it, that I don't think we've ever mentioned this before in the videos I've made. When we attend a program from one of the temples in the US or Canada or Europe, it doesn't happen from 9 to 5. It is Indian time, which is like 12-hour time difference. So if Niti takes the stage to start a session at 10 a.m. his time, that's like 10 p.m. our time. And that's when the day begins. And I love how you mentioned waiting around for him to show up, because they'll say his first session starts at, say, 8 a.m. IST, but he might not actually be there until 12 o'clock noon. And until then, people are told to unclutch, be in the space of listening, do their completions, like all kinds of jargon is used to make you feel like he's not there yet because you're not ready for him. And it's like the mind fuck starts right in that moment where there's no accountability taken on behalf of the organization for their inability to adhere to the time schedule. Instead, participants are meant to kind of grapple with impatience or with waiting, and they're made to believe that that's part of the process they're going through. Yeah. So I appreciate that you mentioned that, Lanie, because that's something I've forgot to mention up till now. And so in this 2-day program, you're sleep deprived because it's not going on according to your natural circadian rhythms. The location is controlled. It's happening in a temple. So the only other people you're interacting with while you're there are full believers, people who have already been to India, who have followed him for a while, who they only speak in his jargon. They'll only talk to you from the space that he wants them to. And so a lot of people might question those of us who were in cults and say, didn't anybody warn you about this fraud? And no, everyone you interact with there tells you the best thing that ever happened in their life was meeting him. Mm-hmm. So you feel like you're supposed to be there too. And
that's a big thing. How fortunate you are to have met the master. Yeah. Many people go through life without ever even recognizing.
Right. Absolutely. And I also want to just mention the importance of how you mentioned the Kundalini awakening. And you're super articulate too. I couldn't have said it better than you did, that this dormant energy at the base of the spine awakens. And when it does, that surge of energy through your system just catapults you onto a new level of spiritual expression. And you know, the techniques that are done in his programs, they weren't invented by Nithyananda. Like the yoga is there in the scriptures, the pranayama forms are there in the scriptures. So it's very likely that we do experience genuine Kundalini awakenings. The difficulty comes in when those awakenings are attributed to him
Yeah.
rather than to the practices found in Sanatana Dharma that he's tapped into. So yeah,
But as because I just want to point out that because I didn't know much about it before, you know, and they talk him up so much and say that he's the only one that can give these things to you, that's where it starts.
yeah,
Because legitimately something did happen to me, okay, which I've not experienced before, and it wasn't just like a bunch of words. If he was a guy just there preaching, I would have walked away. But it's because I had my own experience, and that's what they latch onto,
yeah,
you know, and claim that it was him.
yeah. And I think that's why so many people are still stuck in that cult,
Yeah.
because their mind keeps, it's like it keeps going back to the default settings that he and his cult members installed, which are that, you know what, people are questioning it, sexual abuse victims are coming forward, victims of child physical attacks are coming forward. You know, why are so many people against my guru? Is he bad? And then that setting that he installed in them is, but I experienced this. I had a Kundalini awakening, or I had a third eye opening. I saw visions. I left my body. I had 360-degree vision. I had a Satori. So the personal experiences people get, and again, through the yoga and the pranayama and, you know, the sattvic pure veg diet, like all of those things combined lead the seeker to the experience. But we're not told it's a Vedic science and you're implementing it so you're achieving these things. What we're told is this is a gift from him and he's the only one who can give it, like you said. So
He's the only one reviving the Vedic tradition. Also, don't forget.
yeah, which is so silly that the Vedic tradition didn't need to be revived by him because it never went anywhere. Like there have been,
It is. It's dying in India. Even Hindus, that's what they would tell me. Eat, you're more Hindu and Indian than anybody else, even
yeah.
though you're Western. Like another thing, because
Oh,
they've lost touch with their, you know,
yeah.
religion. I'm like, okay.
That's their MO. They would give us that ego boost by saying, like you said, so many seekers yearn for the guru, but you're the one who he found.
Yeah.
And like you had said again, you're more Hindu than born Hindus. Nithyananda actually wrote that as a comment on one of my Facebook posts. He said, "Dear, you are more Hindu than many people who were born and raised Hindu." So they would make us feel like we are living such an important role in the evolution of humanity. And he would tell us, like, reviving Sanatana Hindu Dharma, bringing the scriptures to the masses, reviving the Vedic agamic civilization.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is that it's only after I woke up and left the cult that I've discovered how many organizations are doing exactly that. Like there's the group who is responsible for Hinduism now out of Hawaii. And they've
Yeah.
already created a database where all the scriptures are translated into multiple languages available for free. So something the fraud told us was his mission, it's already being done.
Right.
You
And
know?
he would actually, he knew those guys. He'd bring them up and he'd even use some of their translations. And
That's
he
right.
would tell us that he likes their artwork and to try to make his books like that and stuff.
Okay, I think let's get into that because the role that you played in the organization when I joined in 2015, you were part of the Gurukul at that time, one of the Gurukul sannyasis responsible for kids. But shortly after that, you got moved into the publications team, and that's why you have this intimate knowledge of what books he wanted and what art style he wanted. Let's get there, but first maybe tell me about what convinced you to finally fork over the thousands of dollars and go to Inner Awakening, and what happened to you once you were there?
Well, like I said, I got that one phone call. Wish I can remember her name. I will. And I was just convinced that.
Tejo Maya?
I'm sorry?
Tejo Swami? Ma Tejo Maya?
No, it wasn't her.
The really curly haired one?
No.
Diamond?
No.
Oh, there's so many of them. Is she still in the cult?
As far as I know. Yeah. So anyhow, I believed her, and I thought, well, God, because see, I was watching satsang every day, and I actually felt really drawn to the chanting, like when Amba Swami, he was doing the puja chanting, and I really liked the sound of the Sanskrit chanting. And so I would sit there and just listen to that because I loved it. And then so it became like I had to watch that song. I would even forego plans with people because I had to be home at a certain time. It started to be like that, like an addiction. I had to be there. And then he said that if you want to upgrade yourself spiritually, you have to change everything in your life. So then I also changed the kind of music I was listening to. Even though I liked world music and different music also, but I really stopped listening to some other music that I felt wasn't spiritual. And then I started getting different books and surrounding myself with that. And then he encouraged us to look at his picture, saying his pictures could give you a spiritual experience because he energized them and things like that. So now you become your whole thing starts to develop around this person and this lifestyle, So then I just became more intensely into it and doing the meditations and things, because at that time he was doing the kriyas, and kriya or something like that, which did consist of ancient yogic techniques, of the breathing techniques, and holding the breath, and all of those different things. So I was doing the spiritual work. And then I just thought, well, I shouldn't postpone. This is something I really should do because I really feel that it's helping me, and I want to evolve as a person, and whatever that means. I feel like I need to meet him. I feel like I need to go there. So, and I did a couple of smaller programs in Ohio, weekend programs. And then I just, I decided that I was going to go. So then I went to that 2011, started November, went half November, half of December. So was done before the holidays. And I just felt, like it was an experience, going to India by myself for the first time, getting the ashram's over an hour and a half, probably, right? From the airport. And you're going through all these crazy bumpy roads, and you're in some foreign place, and everything seems really different and crazy,
Yeah.
And I got there in the morning when the sun was coming up, and the land was beautiful out there, the hills and the different vegetation, and it was all very new, so that was interesting. So anyway, what to say about the program? I don't know. It was day and night, spent with him, right away. It was the puja, satsang, everything was revolved around, the program. And I, had some interesting, energetic experiences. And then also I don't remember sleeping that much either, during the program. And I remember sometimes kind of slipping into a sleep meditation-y kind of thing, and having some weird visions, and stuff, because maybe I was tired or what, I don't know, and doing all the different pranayama. And that's where he introduced that, doing the kriyas. So here we had to also do an enema and a nasal thing, in the morning, the neti pot and eye wash, all those things he implemented. So I felt wow, I'm really doing some yogi stuff, And so I thought it was kind of cool, right? Because it was new, it was cool, and it resonated with me because I was into eating healthy anyway. And I was also into like cleansing the body, and I understand there's toxins in the body that need to be cleansed, and things like that. So I thought it was like really getting sort of some education, But again, there were some kind of weird things like, why did all these women like rush up to be like in the first row of the thing? I thought that was kind of weird. Like, okay, I'm just going to sit back here all by myself. I didn't care, and I thought it was a little bizarre, like a little groupie-ish, which I thought was a little weird because he's a guru, right? And he's supposed to be a monk. So why were these people like that? Maybe it's a cultural thing or whatever. I don't know. So I'm not going to knock it, because it was new and I enjoyed learning about a new culture and, all the different food and stuff that we had at that time. While you're in the program, you get a lot of different food, like 10, 20 different varieties of things, so you're really getting a lot of good stuff, like variety of nutritious and tasty food. We had the meditations by the banyan tree, which I also enjoyed because that was like a nature-y thing, which I resonated with. And I think a lot of other Westerners did. So we had that, time, and so there were different experiences like that, during the program. I felt kind of a cultural thing as well as like the meditation program, which I enjoyed, because we did the temple things and stuff. So yeah, and I just felt like totally hooked, because I did feel like that energy in his presence, and I did feel like when I asked him questions, like he was leading me towards that, like coming there. So like I did ask him, when I went up, because he had darshan every night. If people don't know what darshan is, that means you go up there in his presence right in front of him, and you're supposed to, they tell you this, you're supposed to kneel before him. Okay, why? I don't know, but you're supposed to kneel before him and raise your hands up to receive his energy. So it's like you're in a submissive position, right? And in a position of surrendering, or whatever. So every night we would have that. And if you wanted certain times, you had the opportunity to ask a question, or hand them a piece of paper with a question. One time I did ask, by the end, I felt compelled, like I wanted to go there because they were offering programs there that you can do in India at the ashram. And I felt it would be really cool to spend the time, away and like experiencing it. So he says, come here to India. I said, which temple should I move by in the US or, or should I come here? He's like, you come here for a year, and then move to LA or something, he said. And so I just took that because, and then I didn't know what to do with the information. So when I got back, I was talking to people at Ohio Temple and other people, and they're like, oh, the guru, once he gave you an instruction, you have to do it. It's guru vak. It's guru vak, meaning you have to fulfill what the guru says because he's giving that instruction for you. It's part of your spiritual growth. So I thought, well, I have to do it then. He told me. So meanwhile, I'm still doing all the process. Then I started having satsang at my house where he gives his nightly discourse or weekend discourse. I would have people come over and sit there. And then he made it like two-way. Like if he can see us, that's more beneficial for our spiritual growth. So then he had to pay a little extra to have the two-way license from them. And then so I started getting more involved within that organization and doing things. And so it started to consume more of my time in my life. So all the while I was considering that I was going to go there. And which is like appalling now when I think of it. But, like I pretty much got my house ready to sell. Like instead of listening to other people who were saying, well, why don't you just rent out your house while you go away? Or why don't you, first of all, why are you going? Okay, but then if we're going to get past that, why don't you just rent out your house before you? And I was like, no, I have to just go. Like, I have to just be there. It was just like, I couldn't even rationalize anymore what other people were saying. Because one of the things he teaches, like all the people that don't believe me or are not on the spiritual path like you, those people are going to fall away from your life. And those people are going to hinder you from your spiritual growth and from your evolution as a person or as a being and from your enlightenment. So you need to be away from those kind of people who are going to hold you back from that. So all of these small, subtle things were, he would talk about, and how sannyas, that's another thing, sannyas, which is taking monkhood, taking vows of monkhood to actually study what I thought was study enlightenment under a guru. And that was like the highest purpose in life, was to be there and to live an enlightened lifestyle. So living like a yogi, so doing all of the meditations, the yoga, the healthy eating, and helping other people also understand that they're spiritual beings, and they can also evolve and reach enlightenment also, and all of those things, so they made it as if they're an organization for helping people and, helping people evolve and come out of, the birth death cycle and all of that. And so I just got more and more involved, and I believed it. And I just thought I had to do this. For some reason I had to do it. It's this, and he would always say, Earth is the only place you can get enlightened. And if you're lucky enough to take this birth and realize that there's a master and there is something called enlightenment. So all of these things together, it was like, well, I got to take a chance then and try this, because it'll be there today, gone tomorrow kind of feeling. So then I thought, well, I'll just sell everything and move, back at home and just sell all my stuff and get rid of everything as much as possible. And I'll just go there for that year program, Ananda Yogam program, which was a 1-year program at the ashram. So I did that program for a year. And I could go on and on. I mean, there's so many.
I appreciate it. I want to mention, like, it also took me by total surprise when I went to my first Inner Awakening Life Bliss Engineering program back in 2009. Exactly as you described, like before one of his sessions would start, all the girls would rush to the front row and fight. Like, girls would actually not get into fist fights, but I saw some pushing and shoving and people throwing other people's pillows out of the way. Like, they would leave a pillow or a yoga cushion as a placeholder to save their spot in the front row. And I'd see other girls like throwing those back and taking their seats and getting mad at each other. And I wondered, like, just like you, Lanie, I would just sit in the very far back because I thought, I'm not here to fight for a position close to this man. I just want to hear what I need to do to get enlightened. Like, I was there for the spiritual reasons, not for the rock star personality cult worship that he had created around himself. And I think it's something so maybe unknown to those who just watch videos about Nithyananda or who have only ever seen his discourses online. I know there are a lot of people who consider him their guru who have never been to a program of his in person.
Yeah.
And what they don't really understand.
I said, now they won't be able to.
Luckily. Now they won't be able to because he's a fugitive on the run. But yeah, at that time, he would play favorites with people in the crowd. It's not like he had an unconditional love for all his devotees the way you would expect an enlightened being to. He would invite the wealthiest participants to sit in the front row. He would talk to them for a little bit longer during energy darshans. He would give the longest hugs to the prettiest girls in the most revealing clothing. He would really make it clear that he didn't care about somebody unless they could give him something, whether that's money, whether that's position in society. If ever a celebrity was present in a program, they got the preferential treatment. And yeah, it really was similar to going to a concert. Like, in my experience, whenever I've gone to a concert that has stadium seating instead of assigned seating, how like the super fans will rush to the front and push each other out of the way and try to get close to the lead singer. That's the vibe that was there. And when you mentioned, like, in energy darshan, that you would be there in his presence or in his energy field, what's really fascinating, since I left and started studying cultic behaviors and especially the mind control people experience, a lot of experts, I think it was Dr. Yanya Lalik, who had likened it to the energy people feel when they meet a celebrity. And it's like, we hype these people up so much and think of how many fans they have, how many big high profile events they've attended, what they've done, how known they are. And we do feel an energy from them. But it's not like, while in the Nithyananda cult, I believed he radiated this powerful supreme energy, as we all did, because that's what we were told. But in reality, it was us creating that energy around him. Like the more worshipped we saw he was, the more awed we felt to be so close to him. But yeah, sorry. So you attended this 1 year program, Ananda Yogam,
Yeah.
which for those who don't know, that's the Adinavasi training program. That's like learning what it is to be a living member of his community, like staying in his physical ashram in Bidadi. So he tells you to come for 1 year, but was that a bait and switch where at the end of this you're expected to stay for life?
Well, the thing was, then I thought it was like a year program where you can just see how it is, living there and volunteer, like a volunteer kind of thing. But then people are like, well, it's in a way like ashramite is what they called it back then. An ashramite means you're living as a resident of an ashram and working and living there. So it's that type of experience. And then during that year, he was talking about sannyas, which is monkhood, sannyas, like the whole, like so many satsangs were spoken of that, like how it's the best life. It's the best way to have a fast track to enlightenment because you're giving and surrendering to the guru, you're leaving all your worldly possessions. You're going beyond your ego, because you're leaving your material life, your identity that you had, like, whether it's a friend, a kid, a child, a mother, whatever. You're leaving all your identities behind, you're leaving everything. Like in the Vedic tradition, people take sannyas when they're old, after they've already done all of their dharmas, right? Or is that the correct way to say it? They've already done all their processes, including marriage and having children, and now they're an older person coming into their senior years, and typically that's my understanding when they take the monkhood, where they just wander and spiritually study and devote everything, to their spiritual life and into whichever God, they are worshiping. So, but he's making it like anybody can do that, and now is the best time, you don't have to wait until that time to do it. You can do it now. And he also played it up where only my sannyasis are close to me. Only they are going to get my knowledge, and only they are going to be able to be my students because they are giving everything up for me, and they're making that commitment to me so I can commit to teaching them, kind of a thing. And so everywhere he went, always the sannyasis were always around him, and they always appeared to be having fun, or they appeared to get special treatment from him, and they were always sitting around him. They'd always have meetings with him and all of these things. So I thought, well, my God, it's the only way I can really get into this fully and really make something happen and really understand what is life about? What is this enlightenment about? What is finding your connection with source about? He's promising it. And since I've had these experiences with him, I think I can really learn from him and do this. And, I always was a little bit kind of outside of the normal, thought process, like I believing, because he did talk about being off the grid and out of the matrix, a lot and stuff. And so I kind of believe that because I was always sort of like that kind of person where, I wanted to have a land and, grow my own stuff and, whatever, like be off the grid and not believe everything the government tells you. And like, all that, I was that way into conspiracy theories. And so I bought it all. I bought everything he was saying, and so I thought that was really the ultimate way, to sort of advance. And it was during that year, that I was there where, we did get to spend a little time with him here and there, but I was just a volunteer. And at times we were kind of treated that way, like in strange little ways. Like a lot of times there were some red flags I saw within that first year. And it was a lot of hard work, mostly a lot of hard work, not a lot of sleep, weird stuff happened. Like we had to evacuate the dorm one night because they were going to spray for bed bugs. So we had to sleep on the floor of the welcome center. And so I had to sleep on my yoga mat, like me and the other volunteers, and it was just weird. Yet for me, because it felt like an adventure in a way too, because you're doing this weird stuff, right? So it was all part of it. And then there were times where people were trying to get in the ashram. That's what they were telling us. So we had to guard the front gate. We had to sleep at the front gate for like 2 days. We were stuck at the front gate. Like who's coming in here really? But at that time we thought, oh, these anti-Hindu elements, or at that time, what was he calling them? I don't know. But people that were trying to get him were trying to come in. So we had to stay up all night, like guard the gate. And then we were posted at different places in the ashram, like outside of the inner awakening hall, to make sure nobody was coming in. It was this whole drama, you know? So that was kind of a red flag. And I got a couple more red flags, if I should tell.
Yeah.
Just a couple more red flags, which I should have, wish I, knew it then. But there was this girl, I forgot her name. She was a sannyasi that really sort of, she's kind of short. One, I can't remember her name.
Gopika? Tanmaya? No. Gopika?
No. She's a little, yeah, it's so bad I can't remember her name.
So many, like what people don't get is that there have been hundreds of sannyasis. So it's like, yeah, trying to remember a specific name.
I mean, I could see her for some reason, and she'll probably be the first one to like swear at me about this interview, because she was very vocal. Like when he told us to, attack people for attacking him, she was pretty vocal and appalling, to people. So she's got a mouth on her. But she was really next to him, one of his like close people, and she was instructed to walk around with a stick, like a. It almost looked like, it wasn't like a horse whip, because it was made out of a fiber that grows out of the earth, like some kind of like a stick, right? So she was told to walk around with it 24 hours a day, and if any of the sannyasis were doing something, she was allowed to hit them with it.
Wow.
But like we normally really didn't see that. We just saw this girl following him around and walking around with him and carrying the stick, and it's like, okay, Then we got called to a meeting in the Welcome Center at that time with Nithyananda and these other, his sannyasis, and me and another woman from Malaysia. She was kind of my buddy, she was kind of showing me everything. She was really nice. She was one of the yoga teachers, and she was really nice, making sure that I knew where things were. And, if I had to go to town to get something, she'd come with me and show me how to take the rickshaw. I mean, I didn't know any of this stuff. And so she really took me under her wing, and I was lucky to have her. But she, we got called to this meeting, and he's like yelling at somebody, and he's like telling her to like beat him. So all of a sudden, Ambaswamy, very nice, like priestly kind of guy, not at all like a tough guy, he's really like nice and like studious, very intelligent sort of guy, but he's not like a big bulky, like, sporty kind of guy, right? So here's this woman instructed to beat him. So she starts smacking him on the legs with a stick, and you can tell he's like, like he was in pain, and stuff like that. And they're all like talking and yelling, and like, cause he didn't do something, but of course it's in Tamil, the language of Tamil Nadu, southern India. They were speaking in Tamil, which they often did. So I didn't understand what they're saying, but here this guy's getting beaten, and I'm thinking, what in the hell, But then, of course, they have circulating these stories about how Buddhist monks at times, Buddhist masters, enlightened masters, would do certain things, like they might hit their students to wake them up to enlightenment, You've heard those stories, right? So they would tell different stories like that mixed in, like these Zen stories. So you think that this is all part of the dropping of the ego.
Yeah.
All of these things that happen to justify. So you kind of think, okay, well, it was his karma or some process for him to drop his ego that this happened, right? So that's getting sort of fed. And then there was another occasion in the evening where this woman and I were walking from one place to the other, going maybe to the dorms from the hall or doing something. And we saw him, because he always would walk with all his people around him, his inner circle people, or whatever sannyasis or whoever he was talking to. So he would never go alone. He'd always be walking with them. So we're like, oh, wow, he's there. And we just kind of wanted to see him, right? Because he's our guru. We wanted to get a glimpse. And then we saw them walking by Anandapuri. And at that point, there was like a dirt road that went between Anandapuri and the Rajya Sabha hall. It was before the extension office with the roof was built and all of that. It was just still a dirt road. And so they were walking there, and I look, and there was, I'm trying to remember his name. Mukti Priya Swami. He was in charge of the sacred arts where they built the deities. And they did all that there. So he was up there, which was like a mile walk up this hill away from like the main campus. So he was in charge of it there, but something he got in trouble for, Atma Priya Swami had her sandal. You know, we all wore these thick, the sannyas wore these thick rubber sandals with like a thing for the toe. So like a hard, you know.
Hard orange circle.
Hard orange kind of nub and like a strap. So that thing was, you know, pretty heavy and that, you know, solid. Yet not very supportive, you know, but whatever. So Nithyananda was pointing and yelling, and she took off her slipper. They call it slipper, but it was that sandal, and she was beating this guy on the head. And he's going like this, and he's trying to face the wall of the building, of the Anjapuri building, to try to get away from her blows. Yeah. And she's like beating this guy. And, you know, Nithyananda's standing right there, and he's pointing and saying something, and we're thinking, what in the hell, you know? Yeah. And it was kind of like we were kind of told to, you know, kind of go and stuff like that, you know? So it's like, well, that was weird, you know? Mm-hmm. But again, you know, he's always talking about training his sannyasis. They need training, you know, whatever that means at this point. We know what kind of training now, but we thought it was the identity ego thing being dropped and all of that. So those were two like really creepy red flag things that I saw before I even joined, which I wish I took to heed. But again, I believed all of the propaganda, you know.
Yeah. I remember when I was first new, there was a Swami, Premaya Swami, and he was in charge of NTV, like the daily Nithyananda news. And I remember I was in the courtyard because Nithya was giving me instruction for a documentary he wanted me to make at the Kumbh Mela in Nashik, Trambakeshwar. And he called in Premaya Swami and Sri Yoga Swami and was yelling at them in Tamil, as they do. You know, 90% of those sannyasis are Tamilians. So they all speak Tamil, which is Nithya's native tongue. Mm-hmm. And I feel that whenever instructions to beat people or any illegal activity going on, like the land grabs they were a part of, whenever they discussed that stuff, they would do it in Tamil, specifically so that we wouldn't know what was going on. I think there would have been a lot more red flags if we understood when he was talking about beating people up or, you know, stealing money from people or withholding pay from workers. Like, had we known those things, we'd have taken the red flags more seriously.
Maybe, you know,
maybe.
But it's really difficult, you know, once you're into that. You know, I was doing a lot of, you know, research on different stuff.
Yeah.
It's difficult, you know, and that we can maybe go into later.
For sure. But I remember Nithya was giving me, we were having what I would call like a nice conversation. He was getting Niramaya from the accounts team to bring me a thick envelope full of cash and a plane ticket to Mumbai and telling me what kind of clothes to buy that I should wear on camera, what kind of sadhus I should be interviewing in this documentary. And he was happy. Like, Nithya seemed really excited about it. And he said, I'm so glad you get to experience the Kumbh Mela. He was asking me questions like, have you ever been to Mumbai before? Have you ever been to one of the kumbhs? Like, it was very chit-chatty. And that kind of happens in a person's honeymoon period in that cult.
You feel comfortable, you know.
Exactly. He makes you feel welcomed. And it was like a switch got flipped. The moment Premaya walked into the courtyard, his face went from like this sweet, smiling, friendly guru to this like he growled. And I'd never in my life seen a human freaking growl before. Like, you're laughing, you probably know what I mean. Like, he'll bare his teeth and literally go like "Arr" at people. And
Sometimes I would laugh because I really thought it was part of some joke, like that
no,
he was
no,
doing some,
yeah,
you know. And then after a while, I'm like, I don't think he's joking. At first, I would like
not
laugh at
joking.
him,
He's
but
like
I'm like,
he would get pissed at people. He would have like anger explosions. And so he started yelling at Premaya and Sri Yogaswami in Tamil. And in the cult, they call it blasting. So he was really blasting them. That was, yeah, that was the first time. Sorry?
sorry, just so people know, if we bring up firing or blasting,
Firing, yeah.
hell.
Yeah, that's what it is. So I was starting to like slowly back away because I didn't like or understand what was going on. And yeah, he yelled at him, and Premaya, his head was just down. Like you could tell he felt shit about himself. And afterwards, Nithya looked at me and said, when he was new here, he had so much love for me. He had so much devotion and surrender. Now he's a useless dog. If he ever runs away, he's going to become a drug addict. Like, that for me was my first red flag. And I started to think, wait a minute. Niti told me when Premaya was new, he was like me. Does that mean if I stay here long enough, I'm going to turn into that where I'm getting growled at and yelled at? And yes, that happened. Yeah, but I digress. Sorry, back to your story. So you see Niti instructing people to beat other people, but they use the guru danda as an excuse for it. They'll say it's like this Buddhist technique to break the ego.
Yeah.
So at the end of this 1 year Ananda Yogam program, where you're told the only way to be really close to the master is if you become a sannyasi, and you see that his closest inner circle people are sannyasis. So did you feel like that's your life's calling, to take this initiation and become one of his monks?
Yeah, I mean, I felt that I had to do that in order to really get to, like, I thought, to get like the real instruction, you know, because truth be told, like when I first started watching his satsangs, he was talking about the Yoga Sutras, and it fascinated me, you know, and I thought that in order to learn more about those things, mystical things, and that's what I was interested in learning more, and that he would have to trust me, or, you know, I would have to make that commitment to that study, you know, a life commitment to that study, and be like, yeah, I'm ready to learn and to get this knowledge, you know. So I was convinced, you know, yeah, that I was tied to all these things and I had to let them go and to, you know, to evolve. You know, I did think that and I believed that. And that's why I went forward, as difficult as it was, because then I went back. Like he had his first program in Varanasi, you know, 2014 in, I believe it was like May or April, May, something like that. And so we, a few volunteers and I, and Marion actually was one of the volunteers. And we went to Tiruvannamalai together, her and I, for a few days when we were able to get away, you know, when I was volunteering. Even then it was difficult to get away and do anything, because there's so many really awesome things in India that I didn't even get to see, you know.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I mean, Tiruvannamalai is a really amazing spiritual place. And, you know, we got to see it a little bit anyway. So we did have a cool experience in the temple there. And, you know, we enjoyed that. So I knew her, right? So then my program was over with Ananda Yogam, and I wanted to volunteer for IA. So, and a bunch of us did, you know, she was there and several other, like at least 7, 8 other, you know, volunteers that were Westerners, and they were always at the ashram, always practically living there, you know, like Balananda was there, and like Ma Puja, and like, what is Vajara, I think that was her spiritual name at the time, you know, and all these people, you know, were there, and we wanted to go there because he was going to go there, you know. And we all thought we might be able to volunteer for Inner Awakening, you know. And so, but then, you know, it was Yanatma's whim whether or not she allowed that. And since I was new, even though I just was there volunteering and working in publications actually while I was there for that year, I kind of got away from that question, but I was working on
We'll
like
get back to that. Don't worry.
stuff, you know. Yeah, so I was doing that there, you know, and then, so I thought, well, cool, I'm off for a month, you know, I'm going to go into this Varanasi, I'm going to check out Varanasi because it's supposed to be awesome, and then I'm going to go home to the US, even though I felt that I wanted to go back for the initiation that was happening that July during Guru Purnima. It was like July 14th of 2014, or July 12th, one of the two. So I kind of had in my mind I might go back for that, but I still wanted to do this. So I traveled a little with Marion. We went to Kathmandu and stuff, which was really a great experience, seeing all the Buddhist things there, and then coming back to Varanasi. And then when we got there, it was like the person that was in charge of me in publications, like one of the people heading it up, was expecting me to do all this work while I was there, like on the magazine and all of this. And I'm like, well, you know, trying to volunteer for IA, which I got denied from, you know, for whatever reason, you know. We were only allowed, none of us were actually able to volunteer, turned out, you know. But we were able to go for satsang in the morning only, and then we had to leave. But yet I was still expected to work on this stuff. But this was like my time to like see India. Like I wanted to go to the Ghat, you know.
Yeah.
And because he told us to sit there as a spiritual practice and watch, you know, the bodies burning and stuff like that. He told us that would help us.
Yeah.
Huh?
Manikarnika Ghat.
That's correct. You know, and there were things like that I wanted to do on other stuff. And I got to do a little bit here and there, like see the Ganga Arti and also go there. And it was beautiful to experience that. But it was very few and far between because I was always like getting harassed to finish the project, you know. And then we worked on this magazine called Sacred Places. And I was working with a couple other sannyasis on it. And when he got that magazine copy, he yelled, and he was in front of like a bunch of people, and also I think Inner Awakening people, maybe, and like ashramites and that. And he was yelling. He goes, "Who did this? This is crap." Yeah. And he was yelling, and I'm like, "Holy shit!" You know, because I worked on it. But then he was trying to make it like he was directing at these other two sannyasis. But he was just ranting and raving how it was the worst thing ever. And it's like we were spending all our time on this. I was sacrificing my time, you know, doing that, and it like freaked me out. Like, but still, like I just kept at this thing. Like I just thought I had to go through this process, and you know, and then I went home, you know, to US. So then I got back to the US and just talked to my parents that I wanted to do this. And it was difficult, you know, it was really hard, you know, seeing everybody again and like telling them I want to do this. They thought I was, you know, nuts and everything, but I just felt like this crazy thing. Like when you leave that place, I don't know if you ever noticed this, like when you had to go away for your visa or something like that, it's like you felt like really, I got to get back there. Even though it was like a torture all of the time, mostly, except those few times where you maybe did have a good experience.
Yeah.
It was like I hate to say it was like a drug or an addiction, but it's like you had to get back there. Like you were going to miss something or, you know, something.
Yeah. It's like Stockholm syndrome. Like you're getting mistreated, yelled at, sleep deprived. Your hard work never goes unpunished. Like you'll dedicate your time as a volunteer to writing magazine articles or taking pictures or editing copy, and then you're told that it's crap, but you still feel driven to do more. And I think what we were doing was we were chasing the unattainable goal of perfection, which he claimed he would lead us to. And yet, no matter how many improvements we felt we were making, that's how much further he would tell us we were from that goal. So I know exactly what you're talking about, how it's like hell on earth, but when you're out of it, you crave it because you think that's what you need. It's like a boot camp. Like when you're on like a hardcore exercise regimen, it might not feel good when you're breaking your muscles, but you know that you're building them. And I think that's what we were all convinced we were doing, was going through this tapas. going through this.
Tapas. That's
Yep.
what they talk about all the time is tapas.
Yep.
So I thought I had to just endure these things and be stronger, and all of that. I mean, culturally and being in a strange environment and like all of that was actually more easy for me. Like, I mean, it was difficult. It wasn't glamorous. It was dirty. I mean, all those things people say are true, and I mean, I've got other things I can mention about that, but
Yeah.
it was more like a psychological torture, like an emotional roller coaster, and it was always led back to your incompletions, your karma, your identities, your ego, your stupid mind,
Yeah.
all of that. It was always led back to that over and over in all different kinds of ways, and different, verbiage was used.
Your self-doubt, your self-hatred, your self-denial. Yeah.
You're not integrated in him. You don't have tiaga. You don't, you're afraid of tapas, whatever it is. It's like relentlessly like that. So anyway, when I came back, I don't know, I felt like I had to go, but then I was going to wait because like something was going on with my family, some member, and I wanted to kind of be here to see how how it went. And, maybe I was unsure, like it's such a big step. And so then I wrote a letter to Achila Swami. And I said, I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it to this initiation because, they asked us who wants to come back for it, of course. And so I signed up kind of thing, or said I would. And so I thought I had to tell her, instead of just not showing up, I thought I had to tell her that, I don't think I was gonna be able to come for that one. I'll have to come for the next one. And she, I have the email too, I think still, but like basically saying, you waited Janmas for this. How can you ruin this chance now, to come back, and be with the master kind of thing. And it just like freaked me out. And then I also spoke with another person, Shivananda from Ohio Temple, and she was, trying to tell me that I can come work at her temple because it's really intense over there, and it might be too much for you. So you might want to just come and work here at our temple. And I always had the distinct feeling that she just wanted more volunteers at her temple that were committed, and I thought she was trying to deter me from going there. So then of course I pulled away from that idea. And then I just, and I had an energized picture of him, like one of those big things that everybody gets. It's like a big picture of him that you're supposed to always have in your house when you do healing and everything. What do they call it? A murti, but it wasn't, Atma murti. It wasn't the cutout one of him, but the poster type one. So I felt that was energized, and, I'd sit in front of it, and, I felt like that energy in me, which I believe now is still there, and it's there because it's in me. It's not because I was standing in front of his picture.
Yes.
But I attributed that to the picture because it's his energy, and I attributed that, so I felt like it was a sign that I still had to go. So anyway, to make a long story short, I ended up there, and it was like, before the ceremony, and I was like totally nervous, like what the hell am I doing is what I was thinking, and of course, even with that, wasn't organized. Okay, it's like you don't even know what's going to happen, what you're supposed to do, and you're waiting around all day, and suddenly it's like, hurry up, go get into your saris. You're supposed to shave everything. Shave except your hair, but you're supposed to shave everything.
Everything but your hair and your eyebrows.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but that takes a little time.
Yep.
There's
especially
some
for those who don't know, this is like you're dressed up in a white sari because you have to be in all white for this ritual. You're going to take a ritual bath, like fully clothed. You jump into the temple tank, which is like a big swimming pool.
Right.
And 5 minutes before you do this ritual, they hand you a bag of basma mixed with ashes from one of the Homa fires and tell you to shave your entire body from the neck down, apply this ash mixture as a paste, leave it on your body, get dressed again. You've got 5 minutes to do it, go. And there are so many lineups at the bathrooms, you can't even get into a stall to shave and to apply this basma. It's so beyond chaotic. You're always on a time crunch. You wait and wait and wait and wait, and then the last minute they tell you what to do and you have to rush. And
Right.
so it feels so
Like
frustrating.
a single edged blade. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Not to mention the fact that there's no store. It's not like you can pop over to Shoppers Drug Mart to get your shavers and shaving cream. Like, good luck trying to find something with which to shave your entire body.
Yeah. Luckily, I brought something and I had it, which made it a little quicker. But still, you're in a rush, and you're supposed to take a bath before every ritual. So it's another thing. So even though you're going to go jump in the water, you have to anyway take a bath.
Yeah.
And you're given, like Sarah was saying, like hardly enough time to do that, you know. So you're all nervous wreck, and you're trying to do all this in time, and then then you're rushing over there, and then you're waiting again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like we're just like waiting there for the thing to happen, and then I went through I don't know if I should go into that, but the actual ritual.
Go ahead. Yeah. Go. Please do.
You're all waiting there, right? So the whole place is surrounded because it's Guru Purnima, right? So all the village people, the other people from various countries, people who are native to the, either the surrounding area, so the local village is what I'm saying, and the area surrounding people get bussed in from other places like Tamil Nadu, like Tiruvannamalai. So there's like a variety of people, and they're packed into this place. And people who come from the West, like Europe and US and Canada and Mexico and everywhere else. Mm-hmm. So they're all packed into this pool with like a stadium seating, except you're on these cement stairs leading down into this pool of water with a big lingam, right? So the Shiva lingam, which water falls on it and it flows down, and it's supposed to be the biggest healing thing, in the world. Look, it's supposed to heal you. He energized it and all this with an ancient Siddha techniques, all that. So they go through the whole Abhishekam, which is worshiping the lingam, and then the ritual for the initiation to brahmacharya is going to start, right? So you're just waiting, and then you go into the water and you go under and you bathe under it. So it's like a whole big thing. Like you really feel like you're doing like an ancient, sacred Hindu ritual, and you do feel like an energy there because you're going to that water and you're feeling the water, and everybody's solemn and watching, and then you're there waiting. You come back around and you're waiting on the stairs before him while they're making the announcement for the vows that you have to take. So you think you're really legitimately making vows, into brahmacharya, 5 vows. Celibacy is one of them.
Yeah.
Celibacy, nonviolence, non-stealing, truthfulness, and living with minimal things. Those are all the 5 vows. So you really feel like, I am in this, and I felt like a lot more relief, like, wow, because I really felt like connected with a tradition, of living in a minimalistic way, really living like in meditation and yoga and trying to evolve as a person, and then also like helping other people, and I really thought that's what I was getting into. And because I felt that tradition and lifestyle was helping me, so it would be a gift to help other people also, in whatever capacity. So, and then you go up now and you take your new clothing, and they give you clothing. At least for ours, we had a bundle of clothing and like a little packet of whatever toiletries and things. So from then on, everything that you use or wear, you have to have blessed by him. Mm-hmm. So we collected those things from his feet. We took it from his feet, and he blessed us, and we got our mala, the Rudraksha mala, and our clothes. So we had to go run, and we had like a few minutes, of course, again, we had to go run and put on our new sari, which was the orange color, kavi, they call it. Mm-hmm. And I still didn't know how the hell to put on a sari. So I had to have someone that kind of helped me, to get, in like 2 minutes, and because then we had to run back there again, and then there was like a big celebration because it's Guru Purnima and we were newly initiated, so we got to follow along with him in the procession, which is a big parade with loud music and parade while he's sitting in a chariot, and it's being pulled by a tractor through the entire ashram. So it's actually probably amounts to like a 2-mile walk, with this loud music, and it's like a big celebration. And then we had food and actually chocolate ice cream.
Wow.
First and last time I ever had chocolate ice cream over there. And then it was like the next day, I was kind of, like in a state, for a couple of days after that. And then it just got back into the work,
Yeah.
everything was just always work 24/7, basically, like little time to sleep, and when you talk about honeymoon period, when I look back, I could see it was the first 2-3 years where it was, I guess, a honeymoon period where, we'd get to see him sometimes and we'd have meetings with him and things like that. You know, but from early on, they start with the fear tactics, because while I was there, one of the sannyasis, Ma Priya, would always tell me, you better, just detach yourself from wanting to be in his presence all the time, because you never know when you can get kicked out or you can get sent away and stuff like that. So that always made me afraid, because I'm like, well, I came here because I wanted to be, because I was addicted to his presence. I was addicted to the power feeling, and I was like addicted to that. And I also felt like I had to be around him in order to evolve and to learn. So that always made me afraid, And not like a month after, because he had all these different things, and he just now came up with a new thing with the Tanadars. So he came up with a hierarchy, claims it's how all Adinams run, which maybe they are, but his ashram wasn't really a real one. But all of the, is it 13 akadas, which are the legitimate lineages in Hinduism and the legitimate lineages of monkhood, right?
Yeah.
They all have their own group.
Those that trace their origin back to Shankaracharya, who founded the bodies of what we would call like structured Hinduism. Because like in Sanatana Dharma, like in the Vedic tradition, an enlightened master could give an initiation to a disciple, and that disciple might choose to take sannyas. Like in the case of Siddhartha, like the Buddha, he wasn't a part of a specific akada, but he decided to take up the sannyas and wander. Like there are sannyasis and true practicing living Hindus, I believe, who are not part of the 13 akadas. And there's also the Vaishnavite sects and the Shaivite sects. So what he was describing are like the Shaivite Hinduism that are part of these 13. It's like in Harry Potter, like at Hogwarts, there's like Gryffindor and there's Slytherin, but they're all part of the same Hogwarts school. So with the akadas, there's like the umbrella of the akada. And I don't mean to disrespect any of this. Like I love Sanatana Dharma. I still consider myself a Shaivite. So I'm not trying to like make light of it, comparing it to Harry Potter, but just
so people understand more.
So people understand. It's like, yeah, in Hogwarts, Gryffindor and Slytherin are different houses, but they're all students of Hogwarts. So like that, Mahanirvani Akada is one of these 13 akadas in the Akada Sampradaya. And what Niti was telling us is that every single akada structures those who are members of the akada into a pyramid type hierarchical structure with Shri Mahants at the top, then Mahants, then Kotaris, then Tanedars. And he introduced that.
So he introduced that. And there were other things he introduced after that, which you can explain later, because nothing ever was consistent. But he introduced that around that time. So he made it like, if you want to be, first of all, sannyasis had to be at least kotaris, which means you were a kotari, and then you had tanadars under you. And then above that, of course, was the mahants and Sri Mahants and all that. But you at least had to be a kotari, and you had to have 25, at this point, it was 25 volunteers that were reporting to you. And this is only 1 or 2 months after I joined, you had to have 25, and if you didn't, you were going to have to go off to a branch location. And I'm like basically shitting in my pants, like I just got here, and you're telling me I got to leave now, because I got like 3. So it was like, I wasn't performing well enough where I would actually have enough volunteers who could work in publications. Like, that's kind of a specialized field, but I'm making impossibilities. Of course, it's my fault. But I only got like 5 instead of 25. So there was one day where we had to go and speak to Rishi Advait, your favorite, and tell him how many we had. Mm-hmm. And I went up to him and I'm like, well, I got 5. And he's like, what? You know you're gonna have to go to a branch. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, where are you gonna go? I'm like, well, I don't really know. He's like, well, didn't you call ahead and find out if they got room for you? And I'm like, well, no, I didn't know. And so like they freaked everybody out. Yeah. And this drama went on for a couple of days and I was shitting, in my pants. I hate to say that, but well, I really wasn't literally, but I was nervous as all hell because I just got here. Now you're going to send me away.
And what people watching might not understand is that these branch ordinums or branch campuses, they were always held in front of us as like the worst case scenario. Like if you fuck up too badly, you are going to get sent to a branch campus and you're going to have to beg the locals for your food. You're not going to be provided with the water, the electricity, and the internet that you get in the main Bididi campus. You're going to have to figure out a way to get it. Once you take that sannyas initiation, like Lanie was saying, you can't use any of your purvashram or your pre-monastic stuff. So if you came to India with a suitcase full of like shampoo, conditioner, razors, fresh underwear, like whatever you might bring, necessities, you are no longer allowed to touch that. So if you get sent to a branch campus and say the day before somebody stole your orange sandals that Nithya energized, you got to go barefoot. You can't just bring your old sandals with you. Like you are shit out of luck. And not only that, but we didn't have contact numbers for the people running the branch campuses. We didn't have private drivers and cars to chauffeur us there. So if you get told you're getting sent to a branch campus, for Rishi Advait to ask you, did you call ahead and make sure they have room for you? You don't even know who the hell they are. Yeah. You don't even know, where is this branch campus? Who's running it? How am I going to get there? Do they know I'm coming?
It was up to me to find out. So I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, well, how about Turvanamli? Only because I've been there once.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get there. I don't know what is going to happen. Nothing.
It's terrifying. So, you're on your own in a country that you don't speak their language, and you're being thrown out of a place that you were told is the only place where you can expand yourself and get enlightened. This is where you have to be. So it's
your new home.
It's your new home. So you sell all your stuff, you cut your family and friends out of your lives. Part of the ritual for sannyas, you do a special puja where you offer balls of rice covered in black sesame seeds. And you offer these to your ancestors, to your parents, to your living relatives, to your employers. You offer it to, and to yourself, like using the name you were born with. So for me, it was Sarah Stephanie Landry. I offer this rice ball to Sarah Landry. I'm no longer her. What I didn't know until after I left is that those were funerary rites. We basically gave the last rites to our pre-Nithya identities and to our parents. So it's like you have literally sacrificed everything to be there. And all of a sudden, overnight, they tell you, you have to find 25 people to take vows beneath you as your volunteers, as your tanedars. They don't assign it to you. Like when Lanie says each kotari has 25 tanedars, that doesn't mean 25 people in the organization are given the title of tanedar and are told, okay, now Ma Nithya Oviyananda is your kotari, so report to her. Oviyananda has to find these 25 kotaris. So it's like you, within that hierarchical structure, have to find your own minions. And it's so similar to the Nexium cult, where in the DOS program, for those who are interested in this, like if you've watched the documentary Seduced or The Vow, how they have like a master-slave dynamic. The Nithyananda cult equivalent is the SMKT, Shri Mahants finding Mahants, Mahants finding Kotaris, Kotaris finding Tanidas. So if you can't convince 25 people to serve your goals as your Tani does, you get sent to a branch campus. Jeez. Okay, so it's bringing it all back to me as you describe it.
Pulled on who knows where in some dumpy, you know, like you said, like very minimal thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was freaking out, and so were the other new people who were newly,
Yeah.
you know, initiated. Also, you know, the guys I don't know, but the women that I was with, you know, the few other women. I think there were 4 other women.
Mm.
By the way, I think only 1 is there now out of those 5.
Mm.
So we're all freaking out. Then a couple days later, he has some big drama meeting on the stage, you know, sitting at his feet. We're all sitting there, you know, like at his feet as usual. And they were going around asking, you know, who's got what and where are they going and all this. And we're like freaking out. And then he's like, oh, well, you two, you know, you guys are new. You'll be here for a couple years. Don't worry about it. Like that.
Mm.
Here we are freaking out. And then he's like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
When those orders were given by him.
Yeah.
Anyhow, because nothing, let me tell you, goes through, like everything goes through him. Nothing happens without his knowledge and approval. Yeah. And, you know, yeah, so that was my experience, you know, and there were many things that happened, you know, throughout that time, you know, and it was just basically day and night, you know, working.
Mm.
Day and night. Like I would go to bed like around 1 and I had to be up and at yoga by 4. So you do the math. And it was pretty much that way my entire time there of till end of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I managed. I really don't. You know, there were so many times where we had specific things to do where we couldn't go to sleep until they were done. So many different times. And you don't know if you're coming or going. You know, and I used to be like a super sharp person, you know, like really quick witty and, you know, I got my things together. I could focus and, you know, finish things. But there I was like a total moron. Like I couldn't remember stuff. Like I couldn't keep my things together, you know.
Well, that's what sleep deprivation does to the brain.
Yeah. But I didn't know it at the time, you know, and then because people would, you know, put all this pressure on you to do so many different things. And then they'd be like, what's wrong with you that you're not getting this done? Mm-hmm. You know, and that was continuous. Now, when I was in public, because you mentioned when I was working with Gurukul, mm-hmm. like I worked probably, so I was initiated that July, and then by that following year, like January, February, there was another sannyasi with me, Maya Tito. Mm. I remember her, really nice lady from Canada. She was with me and she was great. You know, we started to get publications going because that was our job, right? We were supposed to get publications going and we had certain things to do. And she was awesome. She was like an editor before. So she went through things really quick so I can try to get things together. And we were given like 5 projects that were priority. And then I'm like, well, what do I do first, you know? So then something happened. We were working on his autobiography. And because he gave that to us directly, that was supposed to be priority. Yet there was all these other projects that were fires that had to be done right away for the next program or this or that. And we weren't moving, you know, quick enough on the biography. And then he wanted to be an autobiography. He's like, this is going to be autobiography of an avatar. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it had to be an autobiography. And we, you know, had certain criteria, and we were taking looking through all of the transcripts to find out where he spoke about his life. So we were pulling all of that data, you know, and looking through all these transcripts. And then, you know, Maya Tita had a valid question, like, well, we can't really call it an autobiography because, you know, people are putting it together. You're not writing it. Yeah. You know, and by all the definition, it's not really an autobiography. You know, we have to call it a biography. And there was a big stink about that. You know, and first it was my fault because I was like sort of the lead of the project. Mm-hmm. But
you let her talk out of turn and ask a legitimate question.
You know, yeah, because it was whatever he wanted. And that's had to be learned really quick. That was like one thing that really had to be learned. It didn't matter what you wanted or what you thought. It had to be how he wanted it. Yeah. And I don't know how many times like I got told, "What do you want, hand holding?" Yet on the other hand, they were telling me, can't you come up with this stuff yourself?
Mm-hmm.
You want hand holding? And then I would get inspired because my name, Oviyananda, was supposedly meant blissfully creative. And I was a creative person. And so I got like excited about making books, and I had really good, I felt like they're good ideas. They inspired me to want to put his words and things into these books and publish them, but yet every time I came up with my own ideas, I was told, who told you to do this? Who told you to come up with this?
Yeah.
It's like, but you just told me you ain't gonna hold my hand.
If you ask them what to do, they berate you and say you expect hand holding. And if you just go ahead and do it, they berate you and say, who told you to do this? Yeah.
So it was really like, if you're coming or going.
Yeah.
So then my teacher brought up the thing, well, legitimately we can't be calling it an autobiography. Okay. So then all of a sudden I was informed that she was sent to do this new Ananda Yoga program in Gurukul. She was sent to Gurukul and starting to, tomorrow. And I'm like, oh my God, this is my only person that I had who knows anything about publications that was working with me. And now she's gone. How am I supposed to get all these 5-10 projects done without anyone's help? And then it was my fault because I didn't have anyone else. And I'm making impossibilities. That was like the big thing, that I was making impossibilities and feeling like it couldn't happen. So then when I spoke out, I wrote to Ranjita Akka. And I'm like, well, I don't understand how I'm supposed to get this done without my teacher. Like, she's the only one that's really good and she knows what she's doing and blah, blah, blah. And we were just kind of getting something going, to make things happen as he wanted. And now she's gone. And then I, the next day, was sent also to go. So it's like, and so they tell you, we can hire people to do your work. You don't know, we don't need you. We can hire people. Mm-hmm. Yet, why aren't you taking responsibility in charge of the department? But yet you're dispendable. We can hire people, but we don't want to because this is for your spiritual growth. All of this process you're doing is for your spiritual growth. Yet you were never really given the chance to complete something.
Right.
And I know there were sannyasis like Ma Bhaktika, somehow she got things done. So it was always like, well, how come I can get it done and you can't? You're making impossibilities. And so there was always this like horrible thing, like that I never accomplished anything, yet I often,
There was also the mind games they would play where, like for a very small period of time, I was roommates with Bhaktika Swami in A2 with Achala and Bhaktika. So she would get yelled at for the same thing. And Nithya would tell her, you create too many impossibilities. You've been in publications for so many years. You've failed it. You failed me. And she got sent to the branch campus in Tiruvannamalai. So it's like the same people who will be held up as an example, and you'll be told like, Ovia, how come you can't make it happen? Bhaktika made this many things happen. You're a failure. You go to Gurukul. But on the flip side, Bhaktika is also being told, you were given Ovia and Maya Tita. You were supposed to groom them and make them a success. Their failure is your failure. Why didn't you make it happen for them? It's like everybody is getting secretly blasted for things that we would all see each other and think, wow, she's juggling so much and she's making it work. How come I can't?
Yeah.
But really, nobody could, because everyone was given an impossible goal. Mm-hmm. And the way you said, they would ask, why are you creating impossibilities? The study I've done in cult mind control since has shown me that this is part of the formula for making people subservient. You tell them, here's an attainable thing you can do. Write 50 pages a day in this autobiography and publish these flyers and put together this archive and get the photos edited and do this and do that. They'll give you like 48 hours worth of work with 10 hours to accomplish it. And they'll tell you, if you surrender it to Swamiji, you'll be a success. But really, no amount of surrender, no amount of surrender can create 48 hours worth of achievement in a 10-hour time period. It just isn't possible. So when you fail, and you will fail, you'll be told it's your incompletion, your impossibility, your self-doubt, your guru doubt, and you get punished. And then you feel like, wow, Swamiji blessed me to be a success here. I guess I'm just not good enough. And then the cycle continues. You surrender to him more, you try even harder. Yeah. So what
Yeah.
happened when you got to Gurukul?
So then we had to go through this intense program. It was like about 3 months, I think we lasted there, where of course our days were packed, you know. So like there was several of us there and we had classes. So then see, I realized a lot of things that we did were to show some numbers or photo ops or something to put like on a resume, which later, like I saw how that worked and on his resume.
Yeah.
You know, but so we took these classes, which consisted of like Sanskrit. Okay, first of all, Sanskrit, I've never even, I'm maybe, you know what Om looks like, but it's like we had to take this accelerated like Sanskrit and, you know, and I was getting frustrated because it was hard for me to kind of pick it up, you know. Unfortunately, I only know English and it was difficult for me. And it's Sanskrit, you know, it's not even like letters that I recognize. So we were like supposed to learn that. And, you know, dressing up deities and doing different like cool stuff, like learning about the deities was cool and all day long. And then we had to do Vakyartas Sadhas, which means taking a teaching that Nithyananda gave and sitting around and like discussing it, basically, to put it in a nutshell. And we had to start having live TV. Like I remember me and Maya Tita did a show like where we would talk about his books, you know, or something, you know, and you know, all of just every day jam packed. We didn't even have time to rest. And then he started at that time also where he made the that Gurukul area, Ananda Sabha, right, into the library. So they started getting all these books, and then we had to start organizing all these books along with our classes. And then somehow at that point, I got hooked up with Ma Advait to go to Varanasi and help her with the kids program. So,
and that's where I first met you, because I was a participant of that May 2015 Inner Awakening in Varanasi, and you were there with Ma Advait as part of the Gurukul. So that's why I always remembered you as being one of the Gurukul sannyasis. Yeah.
That's how that happened.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple of people before I got into there, like Ma Deepika and a couple other ones were part of that too. So then I got to know like, oh, it's some part of some training, whatever the hell that means, you know, they're training something. So I'm with this Ma Advait. And first of all, I'm like, I don't know anything about kids. And then she's telling me I got to teach them yoga. You know, like I knew our program, like our yoga that we were doing every single day, the same exact yoga routine. So like I knew that, but like to teach, first of all, I never taught in my life. I don't know anything. Like I never had kids. I never babysat, and I got to take care of kids now. You know, I'm not qualified to teach yoga. If somebody does it wrong, like they can get hurt. I'm not qualified. And then I had to teach later on yoga. I had to fill in some morning classes for IA participants.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I'm like, I am not qualified to do this, you know, especially if somebody, they can really pull a muscle or do something and I have no clue of what they're doing right or wrong. I'm not like a yoga person, you know. I was always an athletic person, but I never got like hardcore into yoga like some people. But here I suddenly have to teach, and it's like, well, Swamiji will work through you. That's what all the acharyas say. He'll work through you and do it through you. And you have to surrender your ego and just do it and go with it. So here I am running around trying to, you know, just do this stuff to the best that I can. Meanwhile, I got Ma Advait on my ass all the time, yelling at me here and there, you know, telling me, yelling, looking at me with such a venom. Where's your brain? And like yelling at me. And I'm like freaking out, like, what the hell is going on? Like, it was just a torture. Every day it was a torture.
Yeah.
I mean, I found that over time I liked kids, you know, so that was cool. You know, they were adorable and, you know, and they worked hard at, you know, training the program. But imagine, and then during the darshan, Ma Advait always had to go in and help with the darshan. And I was outside of the darshan with the kids who were running around this hall, you know, and I had to make sure they were safe. I had to take them in and out when they had to go to the bathroom, like watch over like a teacher, you know, which I'm not qualified to do. And I only did it because of my own caring for kids, that I was able, because I did care that they were safe.
Yeah.
I did care, you know, that they were okay as best as they could in that environment.
Mhm.
And that's what drove me, only that.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I wasn't qualified to be doing that.
And I think people need to know some of these kids, like a lot of the kids were Gurukul students, but a lot of them were participants and they paid the same price. The parents paid for them the same price as an adult fee to attend IA. So that's 6,000 US dollars for
Yeah.
21 days with Oviyananda in charge of them.
Yeah,
Not
and
knowing,
blabbering all day long to these kids and making them do power manifestation all day long,
not even know
running
what
around and
that
stuff.
is. Yeah. Trying to make them read through their third eyes.
Yeah,
And what's
all day.
crazy is that my perspective at that time as a participant, who I'd been a long time devotee of Nithya, but I had never lived in the Audinum for more than like a couple months here or there as a volunteer. So I assumed that you, Ovia, were enlightened because Nithya would tell us only enlightened beings are qualified to be around children. I assumed that you were fully capable of reading through your third eye because I thought you can't teach others to do it unless you yourself can do it. So I assumed you were this like power manifesting enlightened being. And you were the only Western person, other than Ma Yoga Swami, you two were the only two Western sannyasis who I had seen. So I was really looking up to you in that program, like, yes, that's what I want to be doing. And I
I've
remember,
been lucky. I didn't know it.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, it's a process. And when you describe Madhve yelling at you, like, where's your brain? And looking at you with this like evil look in her eyes, she and Snehamai, who was the Shri Mahant of San Jose, I've seen those two spout more abuse against people, I think, than anybody else in my entire life combined, up till then. So it's not fun. Like, you're getting yelled at, you're getting um, impossible workloads dumped on your shoulders, and then you are responsible for the safety of these kids. So it's not even like, even if you want to rebel against the pressure, you can't because these kids are depending on you. It's difficult.
Yeah. I had to make sure they got their lunch and the food was coming, and I had to work with that crazy kitchen there in the Varanasi
Yeah.
hotel to make sure the kids were getting their food on time and how much they needed. And she'd yell at me as if I'm supposed to know all this,
Yeah.
you know. And I was in charge of the inventory for all the equipment for the kids, and and of course I won it because it was my process. I had to go through my ego and my incompletions, and make sure whatever. But like, I just want people to know that you go in there, you don't know any of this stuff. You don't know that you're going to be put to something with no training, no knowledge. And
Yeah.
you just got to roll with it because you think well, for one thing, that you have to, and because you think it's part of your spiritual evolution, and because you're responsible suddenly for kids that you definitely want them to be okay and
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah. I think the only Western equivalent is, imagine you get hired for a job, and on day one, instead of training, they sit you at a desk and expect you to know the operating system. They expect you to already be familiar with all the people you're working with. You're supposed to know who to call to do something at a certain time. And if that person doesn't do it, you're blamed for not telling them or reminding them, but you don't even know that it's your responsibility to tell them. It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
like you're thrown into a high pressure, high stress job without any training.
Right.
So yeah, really
And
crazy.
you're sleep deprived, especially there. I remember there was a time where and I really had no time. Like, she would not even let me sit down. Like, one time I was sitting down because I was supposed to help the kids with whatever. And she's like, why are you sitting down? I'm like dying over here, and it's hot as hell. It's like 100 degrees out there. Luckily, it's air conditioning, but I had to go in and out with the kids. They had to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one time she allowed me to sit down while she was blabbing. And I was sitting in the chair, and I was so exhausted, I literally tipped over in the chair, and I caught myself. And a couple kids saw, and they were laughing.
Yeah.
But like, I almost fell out of my chair out of exhaustion because I wasn't sleeping enough at all. And then later on, she yelled at me, "How dare you almost fall asleep in my class?" And she berated me,
Yeah.
not like giving a shit. that maybe something's wrong with you or not, but you know, how can you do that? You know,
Yeah.
it was just like horrible. And then after that was the Nasik Kumbh Mela, where I was in charge of I had to be in charge of the kids inside the hall. I was stuck inside that tent like the whole day. And that's another fiasco, you know, that whole situation. Like, I mean, there's so many stories, Sarah.
I know. We'd have to dedicate, I think, a whole interview to just Kumbh Mela and the torture that was Nithyananda camp.
Yeah. Nasik Kumbh Mela and Ujjain. I mean, both of those places I can probably talk an hour, but I mean, so many horrific things.
Yeah.
That I saw. Like, I'm just going to try to fast forward a little now. I appreciate people, if hopefully you're still listening, hopefully people watch this in pieces so they can see everything. But like, at some point, because I went through all of this with Matt Vate, I was put on his team back into like autobiography, just to make a long story short. And they hired somebody. They found a designer, this man, I think he was from Chennai, and he was a designer, and they found this guy and hired him to work there at the ashram to help me with the autobiography to get it going. So we tried to work out, you know, what kind of blah, blah. And this guy was sitting there every day on a computer, you know, his job was to start to compose the book in InDesign graphically or whatever he was working on. Maybe he was working on a different program. Anyway, so this dude was getting paid. He was a very nice man. He had kids and a wife back in Chennai, and he was trying to pay the money because they had like, I think it was after like the hurricane. So they had damaged their house and they had to take a loan, you know, to help repair things or whatever.
Right.
What'd you say?
That Cyclone Thane?
Yeah, cyclone. We call it hurricane.
Yeah.
That form of the sea, it's a cyclone. So their property, you know, had damage. So they had, I guess, take a loan to fix it, you know. So this guy came to work. Plus, I think he had some issue, you know, where he wanted to get to the ashram to be away from whatever issue he was going through. You know, I don't know what it was, if it was smoking, you know, cigarettes or whatever it was. And Indian people believe very much in the energy field of temples, you know, and of ashrams. So they want to come, you know, he felt that he would get healing there. Like he believed that he'd be able to get healing. So that's why he took the job, even though the pay, you know, I thought was like, holy crap, people are making that. How are they living off it? You know, it was like 35,000 rupees a year or a month, or what was it? I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I think about it, but it was a very low wage. But, you know, and I know the cost of living is less there, but he took a risk is what I'm trying to say, because he wanted to help his family and because he wanted to help himself. He wanted to improve himself and get healing for whatever he needed. And he was very nice. So we were working together on this thing, blah, blah, blah. Kumbh Mela comes around, Ujjain Kumbh Mela, where we took forever. I mean, we can talk 3 hours about Kumbh Mela, but I want to say that this man said he'd agreed to come to Kumbh Mela because they expected me to still work on the autobiography and do a whole book on Kumbh Mela. And later they put some other books on my plate that I was supposed to do with this guy while we were there in Kumbh Mela. So he comes, he brings like a computer. We had a computer for him. And we're in the hall, was the only place where like the vision team and everything was in the hall, because it was safe there to have the equipment, because it was by the stage in the main hall where Nithyananda was. And but then I was informed that he couldn't work there. He couldn't be there during the sessions. So I had to like find another place to put this guy to work. Now we're talking about poles, metal poles holding up big tents, right? These are just like temporary shelters with no flooring.
Yeah. So it's a mud floor, and therefore there were 2 thunderstorms with tornadoes that swept through our camp at the Ujjain Kumbh Mela. So that means like the mud floor, typically if you're building a structure to support, I think there were 3,000 participants at this program. Typically they would lay down some kind of floorboard and then a carpet over it or some underflooring. This was just like red felt, like pressed cotton felt on the ground. And so there were puddles of mud indoors. Like the ground was wet and muddy. And it was such a risk because the live wires feeding to the light system, to the fans, to the stage setup, to the cameras were actually draped through these puddles of water and mud. So it was extremely dangerous. And for you to find a place,
mold and whatever else was
there was
growing.
mold growing, yep. We were all walking around barefoot, knee deep in the mud because our sandals literally got lost. Like when the landslide happened in the mud. I'm laughing now, but it wasn't funny at the time. Like it was torture. So for you to find somewhere for him to work, there were no other structures that had Wi-Fi or that had electricity for his laptop. So what the hell do you do? And he's
It wasn't a laptop. It was a freaking iMac or some computer, a big ass thing. So
yeah,
every day, and I was responsible for this machine.
yeah,
So every day I had to go and sneak in there before Nithyananda came on stage, grab this thing and go through some door side thing and give it to this guy. Like, and it was like a big drama because and if the program started already, I had to sneak around because he couldn't come in there. And I found a place in the temple for him where it was hot as hell.
yeah.
Like
There was no AC in there, and that's where I lived 24/7.
That's where I also was because we were assigned to do that. So I was assigned where I had to sit in a booth in this temple, yet I was still supposed to make these books happen. But I was making an impossibility.
Yeah.
Where I couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the brief side story. But the point I'm trying to make is this guy was really dedicated. He really wanted to try to make it work. And I would do the best I can trying to get him things to keep working on. But since I couldn't be in front of my computer to feed it to him, sometimes it was difficult. My point I'm making is then suddenly they don't want to pay this guy. Okay? So this guy comes to Ujjain, was living at the Adinam with us, comes to Ujjain, you know, and they're not paying this guy. He's like, you know, I haven't gotten paid in like a couple of weeks now. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, they keep telling me it's going to be, you know, whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm like, I didn't know that. He's like, yeah, and I really got to send the money back to my family because they're paying for this, you know, we have to pay for this debt. And he's starting to freak out. Then we're going on 24/7 survival teams. And this guy doesn't have any work to do now because they've taken us away from our normal jobs and putting us either in temple, kitchen, or security. So what am I supposed to do with this guy? He needs to make money to get paid. I can't give him the work to do because I'm not allowed to. And this dude doesn't know what to do. He's beside himself. And he's like, I'll do anything. I'll like clean bathrooms, you know, I'll work in the kitchen. I'll do anything. If I can get a little bit of pay, you know, to be here, you know. And I tried to get that approved. And at first they're like, yeah, okay. And then they're like, no, we're not paying him. You know, he needs to go back until we come back and all this.
Oh my God.
So there was like this big drama. This guy, I don't even know, he didn't even get paid. And then when I came back to the Adinam after whatever, a month, like he was there. And then he had to, like he was there for a few days and we had a week to get this book done. And of course we couldn't. It was this whole big drama, right? And then he ended up like having to leave for like something with his family. And I think he just had to get the hell out of there. I don't know. But he said it was something he already told me about, which I'm not sure if he did, you know, but he had to go. Like tomorrow was like his kid's first birthday in some big temple and it was real important. Mm-hmm. And I remember Ranjita yelling at me, how dare you let him leave like that? He can't just leave from his responsibility and walk away. How dare you? It's your fault. You're never going to get anyone to work for you again. And all of this. And it was my fault that he never got paid because I don't know how to treat my employees, is what she told me. And all of this stuff, that it was my fault. And I felt horrible for this guy because he wasn't getting his money. And I understand he's working outside and he's got a family. Yeah. And they didn't care. I'm like, and they yelled at me.
People know Ovia was not the one who would administer the payroll. That goes through a team called the account department. And Ranjita is the one who authorizes the payments to be issued to the workers. So to yell at you and to tell you that it was your fault he didn't get paid, that is total gaslighting bullshit because that was her job.
And I did everything that was instructed. I filled out every task he did on a grid, every hour of the day and everything he accomplished. I filled everything out properly. And they're saying still that it was my fault. He shouldn't have left and he had a responsibility to finish this book, to be released by Guru Purnima and all this. And then I got blasted, you're never gonna be on my team anymore. And he made me feel like total shit. Yeah. You're just, you know, and I kept coming up with reasons it didn't happen, like that we ran into problems. And you're just making reasons. You're not making solutions. You're just coming up. And I just got like a avalanche. So I don't think, and this guy came back even like weeks later to try to again to get his money.
Oh my God.
He was really nice. He's like, I don't know what's going on. And I felt terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was supposed to tell him, that it'll come. I was supposed to lie to him. That's when Meda Maharaj was there or something. And I was supposed to say that it was coming. Oh, he'll make sure it happens and all. And I don't know whatever happened to him, And I feel bad. He was like a really good dude, and he was trying to work with me. And he was really cool, nice person. So that's just one thing where and I experienced other stuff where they did not pay people. And they wanted me to make it blow it out of proportion. They didn't do what they were supposed to, which they did do what they were supposed to. But and then I was told that I was acting like an outsider, and I wasn't caring about the project and his stuff and his money and whatever thing. I'm like, but they did what they were supposed to, and it looks good. And they're not paying these printers,
Wow.
Like many times this happened.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. This guy 2 years later was from one of the biggest printing houses in India, was trying to get his money.
Yeah.
And he was in trouble because that was, his job could have been on the line for all I know. And I did everything. And I went in there so many times with all the paperwork, this convoluted structure they had. And and I checked everything in and did everything. I checked it in with his mother, the stock. So I know that all that was right. I had all of the things, and I went there 4 times to put it through accounting, and they kept saying, it was my fault. And then finally they approved it, and it still never went through, crazy stuff. And imagine if that happened just in my department.
Yeah. No, that was every department. Yeah.
How many people did they swindle?
Well, every program that was ever held that I was there for, every Inner Awakening, Sadashivoham, Nithyanandoham, there would always be a whole kitchen staff there for the first week of the program, preparing the food, serving the food, putting it in the carabiners, taking it to the hall. And then suddenly they would be gone. And we would be told the kitchen staff ran away. It was only after I talked to, I think it was Matejo Swami, who was running the kitchen during one of these programs, that she said, well, they all left because they weren't getting paid. And they finally decided, instead of continuing to work for free, they would walk out. And so we were all told they took the money and ran. But in reality, they worked for a week, didn't get paid. They got ripped off and finally left because they had to. So yeah, this cult was notorious for bringing in contractors or builders, starting construction, and then not paying the workers. And it's sad, these people are hardworking. They're working 18-hour days, 20-hour days, doing hard labor or difficult intellectual tasks. And they're under contract, not for a whole hell of a lot. It's $10 Canadian a day is what they would be earning, 500 rupees a day. And they're not even getting paid that. So it's sad.
I saw these laborers outside. I mean, these are village people. They think, oh, great, let's get some work. So they were hired to clean, clean the buildings or do laundry or to do other work outside, And one day they were all yelling outside of the welcome center. There were 50 at least of these there, and ladies and men also, yelling, they want their money. And I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen? A riot or something.
Yeah.
And they wanted their money.
Yeah.
And how many times we were told they had to fire the staff because we were incomplete or we weren't properly treating them or something.
Blame it on the sannyasis.
So now clean the bathrooms ourselves and do all the kitchen work ourselves and do our own laundry because of our fault. They're no longer. But in truth, they didn't pay the people, so they got out of there, probably.
And we were never told that. People watching this might say, well, okay, if the employees weren't getting paid, why didn't you do something about it? We couldn't. The hierarchy in that cult is Ranjita. The girl giving him a blowjob and the sex tape leaked by Sun TV, that lady she's not just like a concubine of his. She's not just his mistress. She is also the head of his Audinum. She's considered like the Shri Mahant of back then the Bididi campus, the International Sangha. So literally every department head reports to her, and
Yep.
she gets the final say as to who gets paid, who doesn't get paid, who gets sent out, who gets welcomed in. It's all up to her. And
But
so,
he knows too. Like,
oh
there's
yeah,
no don't go by
well, the
him.
two of them are intertwined. It's like,
Right.
yeah, left hand, right hand. Um,
She just gives the orders, you know.
yeah.
But it's all through
Nobody
him.
had direct line to him. They would have to go through her.
Right.
And from my time, in A10, which was his bedroom, or the green room behind the Raja Sabha stage, I know for a fact she did not always ask him. Like if a department head sent an approval request, if she felt like saying no, she would say no. He wouldn't even know that the request had been made.
Mm-hmm.
So she really did hold the power in that place, um, which of course he gave her. So he has the ultimate authority, but he gave her the veto rights to a lot of this. And if we ever made a stink, if I ever said, for example, hey, this lady who's been teaching in Gurukul for 3 months, who was hired in to come and tutor the kids in English, hasn't been paid, she's crying to me and asking where's her money, I would get yelled at and told, why are you sympathizing with her
Yeah.
incompletions? That's between her and Maud Vate. You have no right to interfere. So we couldn't raise an issue about staff not getting paid because we would be told that's not your department's concern. Like, stay in your lane.
That, and also they are blessed to be
Yeah.
working for an avatar for Shiva.
That too, yeah, it's their blessing to be here.
They are blessed.
Yeah, they should be doing this as seva. I remember when I was instructed to make a documentary about the Ujjain Kumbh Mela, I was told to bring in a crew that were at least at least BBC caliber documentary crew, National Geographic level,
Mhm.
have at least 10 cameras, 15
Mhm.
cameramen, a director, a producer, a writer. Bring in a team of people. They have to have a great portfolio, a great resume, great equipment, and cause them to do it as a voluntary service. Like that was my expectation. And what I was told is, like, show them a contract, find out how much they want to get paid, discuss it, negotiate it, but barter them down to free labor. Convince them to do it for free. So what we were all told to do, if we brought in a staff, or if we had somebody hired into our department, we were expected to convince them to do it for free.
Yeah.
Which is why I never had any staff on the social media team, because I'm just not able to do that. I believe in paying people fair wages for what they're doing. If they want to take sannyas and do it as a volunteer, all power to them, but no.
You're supposed to try to convert them to be like ashramites and do it for free.
Yeah,
Like, what?
exactly.
And especially like in like a day, and you're not holding the space then.
Yeah.
Or you don't believe in Swamiji or something.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway,
It's,
let's skip ahead a little bit to when Niti fled the ashram and what was going on when, like, the whole reason you go there and you take sannyas is because we're told being in his energy presence, being in his space, being close to him will give you enlightenment. What did you go through in early 2018 when suddenly he told all of us that his life was in danger if he stayed in India and he left?
well, I mean, I felt pretty like it was difficult,
Mm-hmm.
like because obviously I felt pretty devastated. But at first, see, actually, I was not even in the Adinam for like 4 or 5 months before that because I was sent to Trishulam.
Oh God, you were in that branch campus. Sorry,
Yeah.
if you want to tell a little bit about that, go ahead.
Each one consists of about 10 containers, which in India, containers look like box cars, right? In the United States that they use, for trains to transport stuff. But in India, they use containers for temporary building structures, let's say.
Shipping containers, yeah.
Shipping containers. So they might be a little bit furnished on the inside, like have paneling, or they make one of these cars into like a bathroom, with like a shower and a toilet and all that. But basically, they're essentially shipping containers. So I was sent to this place, which consisted of about 10 of these containers, consisting of like a small temple, like storage, a kitchen, some living containers, this, that, that's all this place was. And it was like, then they had a structure with deities, like a cement structure with the deities installed, but no canopy or anything. They were just open, which I understand is not cool. But they were like that all day long. And then behind that, it was just an open like field, a field of dirt and rocks and garbage, because the town would throw their junk over the wall, their garbage. And at night, like stray cows and dogs would run through this place. And, like only half of it was walled. And it was my understanding, there's like, yeah, it's like a slum around us. I'm like, oh, okay. So like I was at this place, like pretty much alone with only a few other people for like months. So then when I got called back, because I was there before, whatever, this is a bunch of other stories, but then we got called back in April and all of a sudden everybody who ever worked in publications was called back to the Adinam near Bangalore in Bidadi. And we had to put together all of his files, basically, for his books. And I know video team, I think we're doing all his files for books and all the things that, he ever put through, that kind of, I can't remember what you call it, but all that data, basically, which for years I was trying to get them to get new like hard drives, because they had all these little crappy hard drives with all his books and it was all scattered, right? So it was like our fault that it was, not taken care of and not organized. But anyway, that was like another project I tried to do, but I didn't get the funding or whatever happened. So we had to come together and put all this stuff together in files and save it all. And I just felt like that's starting to happen. And then we had to do some other print of a book. And then we had to start putting all this stuff together. And then he started going on those temple trips where he was out of the ashram. And then one day again, he was getting ready for one of these temple trips. And I just had this feeling like, even though he was supposed to meet with us, I'm like, I think he's going somewhere again. And then after a couple of weeks, he never came back. And I had a feeling he wasn't coming back. And that was in June of 2018.
Oh yeah, he'd been gone for a month by then.
Yeah. And I'm like, he's not coming back, and they're trying to tell us that, oh, because somebody tried to say, and it just seemed weird, but whatever. And then at one point we had this meeting with Achala Swami in the Rajya Sabha, and she's like, really, oh, how dare you people, you're taking advantage, he's out there, he's been driven out of his home, and like all this like crazy drama, like just trying to make us feel horrid, and somehow, we didn't protect him or whatever, So it was really trying. And there was a lot of other stories. I, again, talked for a long time about it. But I felt really bad, because I'm like, I was here and I was gone. And I don't think he's coming back. That's how I felt. Like something in me knew it. And then anyway, by that time, like September or August, I had to go back to the United States because I had to get a new visa. And I don't think I was able to go anymore. I wasn't able to go anymore and get like a temporary one. I had to go back. So then I was instructed, because I asked actually Ranjita, I said, should I go back to my poor Vajjan family and stay there, because I got to get all this done, and I don't know how long it's going to take, maybe a month or two, And she's like, how dare you? I'm not even going to present this question to Swamiji. How dare you are so out of integrity to ask such a question like that? So she made me feel like, oh my God, I shouldn't have asked even to do that, like again, because there's been a lot of side stories of how they try to get you not to even talk to your family and all of these things. So anyway, she goes, you have to go to LA and all this. So I had to go to the LA temple and live there during that time, you know. And it was difficult because that place, you know, there's some people there that are like nutty, you know, and you're day and night with these people, and you're again sleep deprived. And then we had to drive 30 minutes from the temple to and from. So there we are, sleep deprived. And then I got put on the list to drive because this other lady could hardly handle it because she wasn't getting enough sleep either. And she was falling asleep driving. Dangerous on the highway of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I haven't driven in years, and I was also sleep deprived, you know, and I had to like be really careful because I didn't want to hurt the other people that were in the car with us, you know. So all that stuff was going on, and I was like having doubts at that point. Not like that I would run away, but I was having doubts that I wasn't cut out for it, that I didn't think I can handle it for the rest of my life, this psychological torment, you know, because it's really extremely getting more difficult.
Yeah.
And again, I'll try to fast forward, but I was just coming to wit's end. I was out of integrity. I was getting blasted because I wasn't doing publication stuff, yet I was instructed to do causing. I was supposed to cause people for Sarvanyapita by doing power manifestation sessions. And every night we'd have these sessions on two-way with people to try to get them ultimately, you know, into Sarvanyapita. And I just want, as a side note, to say that before he left, like that year, the year before he left, when he was doing that Adina Vasi training, he said, the only purpose I have for any of my people is to be Adina Vasis. I don't want people out. I want anybody to be Adina Vasis. That's the purpose of all my programs, is to make people Adina Vasis. So, because he wanted more slaves.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I was at my wit's end. This was like end of this then turning over into 2019, the beginning of 2019.
Yeah.
He did that program that I don't know if, I think you were gone by then, because actually I spoke to somebody who told me you left. I'm like, oh, you know. And I don't know if you know, there was a program he was doing in India where you go for a year and you're in silence and you're I forgot the name. But I actually signed up for that thing because I really thought I was just completely out of integrity. I didn't even know if I should, you know, I wasn't doing something right because I was always miserable. So I thought it was somehow my integrity to him. I wasn't getting anything done properly, and I was miserable and out of integrity with him. I had to do this program to get me realigned, is what I thought. So I signed up and got approved for it. And then meanwhile, I had Bhaktika and Kalika like hounding me for stuff for publications and trying to do this. Then he wanted the transcript for satsang done and completed and ready to post every night. And I couldn't type that fast to like catch it all. And we weren't supposed to record anything. But I was told on the side by Kalika that I should record it so that I can listen to it and fix it up properly so it could be ready to be posted right away. So how many hours did that take? You know, I'm, you know, into the night where I had to finish that up. You know, and do that. It was like, so I was doing that, yet I was supposed to be doing something else, and I was getting berated for doing that. Finally, I sent a message to Ranjita, you know, because I was at odds with her mostly since I was on his team, and she was nuts working with her and gave me a big mind thing. So like I never wanted like to really deal with her much if I didn't have to. But I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to complete with her because I must carry some incompletion about all of that with her, and I'm just going to stand up to that and just go beyond it. And I, you know, I sent her a message and said I was sorry and all this, and I didn't know, you know, whatever I said, you know. And I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing here? I don't even know anymore. Am I supposed to be doing publications or what? Then she wrote me back and blah, blah. And then a couple days later, I get a phone call from Yanama. And she goes, I need you to go into a room where there's nobody around that can hear you. Okay. Make sure you're in a private room.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to, I mean, I could talk all day and I don't know if anybody's going to watch this whole video, but at least it's on the record, right?
Yeah.
Because I just want to show, as a side note, another side note, like that everybody should, if they're thinking, read this book, okay, by Stephen Hassan. And he's got a model called the bite model of authoritarian control, okay? So there's 4 different aspects of this: behavior control, information control, thought control, emotional control. And there's a bunch of points under all of these.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want you to, I'm requesting that you look at this thing. And what I'm about to tell you is like huge in this whole thing. Okay. And I didn't realize until coming out and looking back, like, whoa, So anyway, I was told to go into this room and, make sure no one can hear me. And Yanatma is on the phone, and Akka, Ranjita, gets on the line. And they're like, okay, you cannot tell anybody. You have to keep this between, but since you reached out to Akka and, you want to be in completion now, or whatever they said, they had some spiel to like make me feel better, I guess, a little bit, and make me feel like somehow I got past some incompletion because they're allowing me to do some very important work directly for him. And I can't tell anyone about it. And I have 24 hours to find a plane ticket and send all that information to Yanatma, and you're going to go to Bogota or Bogota.
Where is that? Which country is that?
I'll get to it, because I'm thinking, where the hell is Bogota or Bogota? Where is that? I don't even know. But I had to find a plane ticket to go there because it's a very important work to do for him. And I'm like, oh my God, So I couldn't tell anybody where I was going or what I was doing. They all thought that I was getting ready to go back to India because I got approved for their program, because they all knew that I got approved for the program.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and that is in Colombia, South America. Colombia.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that where all like the drug lords hang out? You want me to go there? I'm like, okay. And then I looked up, it seems like a big city though, and it seems like cosmopolitan, and like, okay, so, and like I happened to look up that it was kind of cool there, like 50s and 60s Fahrenheit. So I'm like, well, I'll grab a sweatshirt because I'm thinking it's going to be hot like India.
Yeah.
So luckily I grabbed a sweatshirt. It turned out it was like their winter, and it was cloudy every day and cold. It was cold all the time and rainy. But anyway, so I get there. First of all, I'm not supposed to tell anybody where I'm going. I just swear that I wasn't telling. So nobody knew. My family didn't know. My poor Russian family. Nobody within the Sangha knew. Nobody knew where I was going except those 2 people. And the person that I was going to meet, which I wasn't even told I was meeting there. I had no idea. I had to go to the airport, and when I got there, I would find out who I had to contact.
And just to put into context, like, this sounds like the plot of a kidnap movie. Like, you have to get a ticket to Bogota. You can't tell anybody where you're going. Your family doesn't know where you're going. It's so hush-hush that you don't even know who your contact is going to be at the airport until you get there. Yeah, like, it sounds like you're going to be made into a drug mule or something. Like, that's scary. It's
scary. And when I look back, I'm like, damn, that's...
Yeah. But at the time, in your sleep-deprived, surrendered state, you're just thinking, well, if Ranjita's telling me to do it, Nithyananda's telling me to do it, then it's coming from Nithyananda. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Help him. Where is he? Then
Pardon my interruption. I'm just going to listen.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you either, but...
No.
Is he there? Am I going to see him? Of course, right? You get that hope, because whatever, because while I was in LA, like I had to drive people to the airport and like stuff like that, and I can tell they were packing things for him, like this organic stuff and food and boxes. And I had to take people to airports and stuff. So I'm like, okay, they must be going to wherever he is, and you can tell certain people were with him. Like I had my own kind of intuition about certain things that were going on, but I wasn't sure where he was, And so then I got sent there, and it turns out I was meeting Dhyanatma Swami, who was always in charge of all the legal stuff. Yeah. And I had to go, and she didn't even meet me at the airport. She gave me like the directions of where to go, like the address. So here I am in this friggin' South America, having to go on my own to somewhere and meet her. So it turns out I met her there because we were calling all the local lawyers there, because in a nutshell, they wanted to get political asylum for him. So I felt like I was there so she wasn't alone, there, I think is why I was there. And then of course, then I started calling just to kind of feel people out and sort of help her out. But she knew like a little Spanish, and then I'd have to go with her to these meetings, whenever, if she ever met, and I had to go with her. And so this whole thing was for a month we were there. And meeting with some like really high profile lawyers that I think, were representing some high profile people. And at one point it got pretty far and I had to leave. They wouldn't let me be in the room, during the negotiations, which okay. But I don't really know what became of it or anything.
Yeah.
But I just know that I'm in this messed up place doing this stuff, and it was, like a danger,
Yeah.
and nobody knew where I was except these people who really didn't care about me,
Right.
they didn't really give a shit if I lived or died, You think if something happened to me there, they would have contacted my family? No, they would have dumped me off somewhere. I don't think they would have cared.
You'd be one more missing person on his long list of missing people. And that's probably why you were told, don't tell anyone where you're going. Don't tell anyone where you're flying
Because
to.
they don't want no one to have any suspicion of where he might be.
Yeah. And they don't want to leave a trail. It's really scary. Didn't you
Ah,
tell me once that there were like armed guards, like with machine guns outside of one of these meetings?
yeah, one of these meetings. And by the way, I wasn't allowed to go on social media at all.
Mm.
And I had to use VPN anytime I was on my computer or phone. It was not negotiable. Like, it was like, you must, or your ass is grass, like you
Yeah.
had a, and I couldn't even I wasn't allowed to get a SIM card. So here I am in this country trying to use Wi-Fi. We couldn't even have SIM cards over there.
Yeah.
And we'd go from place to place. We'd sit with our bags in a coffee shop because it had Wi-Fi, waiting for approval for money to get wired so that we can go to a place to sleep.
Wow.
So we were like living on this edge all the time.
Coffee shop gypsies. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had to go to a place because this lawyer's that high profile. He didn't want to meet in his office. We had to meet at a place where there was armed guards, and we had to put our stuff through a conveyor belt like in an airport and go through a metal detector. So it's like, where are we going? Who are these people that, and here we are dressed in orange, and I didn't have anything really decent. I had this horrible looking old clothes basically, and like a zip up hoodie that I got secondhand that was laying around the LA house where we were living. I had and whatever, I did my best. We did our best, but we both looked pretty,
Bedraggled.
yeah. And going to meet lawyers looking like that, like, what did they think of us?
Yeah.
So we had this whole story that was cooked up that we did during the time before I left, during those 3 months before I went to LA back in 2018, right after we left, scrambling day and night, living in the Rajya Sabha, day and night, not allowed to leave that place, putting together all this data of everything he's ever done, like facts, statistics, all the stats on hours, all the different talks, how many were there, all the books, all the places he started, even if it was just like a podunk place with one deity, that was considered a temple. So everything to make him look like this great guru, this great person, and putting together this whole story that they can present to these lawyers to say he's being persecuted in his home country and he has to be given political asylum because if he goes back, his life is in danger. And not only that, okay, I felt like, yeah, he's a guru, he should be protected. But it wasn't that. They wanted all these other demands, which made the whole thing like even more ridiculous. Like, it was possible to get someone political asylum, but to get someone political asylum as a head of a Hindu nation and to have diplomatic status,
Yeah.
and to get political asylum before he even sets a foot in the country. So they wanted us to get into like government officials that know the president or the prime minister who could say yes or no before actually committing. So we'd have all these lawyers and lobbyists from all around the world built up where we had to call and try to get that. And some people thought we were playing nuts. Some people thought it was legit and they were going to try to help us. But they never paid it. They never wanted to pay these people.
No.
And how much legwork is someone going to do before they get paid?
Yeah.
And all of it.
So viewers understand the caliber. There's another person not willing to publicly reveal her identity who told me that they even went to Amal Clooney's law firm in London to get him this kind of human rights activist lawyers involved to try to claim that he's being persecuted in his home country and that he needs diplomatic immunity. I think the reason he was so forceful and ferocious about getting him diplomat status is that a lot of countries like the US, for example, if a diplomat commits a crime in the US under a diplomatic visa, they cannot be prosecuted. So I think he kind of knew his criminal history was catching up to him, and he believed that if he had a diplomat visa for one of these countries, he couldn't be arrested
Yeah.
or extradited.
Right, extradited. That was another thing that was big. We had to get some lawyers to tell us, you know, what are the grounds for extradition and can he be extradited in this particular country? At that point in time, it was in Colombia.
Wow.
What are the laws in the, what are the actual laws and the lines, you know, that state what it is, you know, because they wanted to see if he can get extradited in that country. So, you know, that he knows that he's a criminal, you know, and he was trying to get immunity. So I was there for a month, and then suddenly, you know, at one point I was going to almost have to go to Africa because somebody had a lead in Africa, and I was freaked out because I looked at 30 hours and all these flights, and I didn't want to go to Africa. That's like, you know, really beyond my realm. And it wasn't like South Africa. You know, it was like a country where you take like 4 planes to get to, kind of in the backwater.
Like you'd be really off the grid. Nobody would know where you are. Anything can happen to you. You don't.
And where there's, you know, guerrilla warfare and people, you know.
Oh, it's like wow.
Those countries, you know, they're like hard. Those people are going through a lot of turmoil there.
Yeah.
They have to live with every day. And can you imagine us going around in orange clothes? Hey, you know, come on.
Yeah, no.
Anyway,
it would be unwanted. Yeah.
So luckily that didn't pan out, but then I was told I wasn't supposed to tell where I'm going next, and the other person, Diana, I had to go back to US for some legal work, she told me. So she was gone, and then I was waiting for my instructions, and I was told I had to go to Peru. So I had to go to Lima, Peru, and there I met up with several other people, 8 other people that were already doing the same work that I was just doing for like months.
Wow.
And I don't know, I really wish those people would get out because they're very nice people. You know, I lived with them for months, these people. And we were living in Peru for like 2 months about. And again, each week we had to move to a different place, and we couldn't get our money sometimes, you know, in time. And Yanatma had the say, right, of what money we'd get. And she'd always like try to lower our budget, and already to have 6 to 8 people, whatever it was, to go and stay somewhere, it was very difficult to find. And some of these places didn't have heat, and it was damp and cold, you know, and we had to do our laundry and try to dry it, you know, like it was tough. Yeah. And then we were trying to get approval to buy extra clothes that were a little warm, but then we were with Prematma Swami, who was like kind of berating us a little, like, you're sannyasis, you're supposed to be tough. And like, we're freezing our ass off all the time. Like a sweatshirt's not warm enough, you know, and sit inside a house in those thin cotton clothes, you know.
And for people who've never done it before, like when you're a sannyasi, you might have like 3 sets of orange kavi cloth. And what we would typically do in Bididi, India, is wash one set. While that set's drying, you wear the other set. Once that set's dry, you put the 3rd one into the wash. And I'm talking like bathtub, wash it yourself, and then hang it over your bed to dry. We didn't have washers and dryers for this. And so if you're doing that in South India where it's hot, by the 2nd day, your first set of clothing is dry, so you can start wearing it and just keep continuously every day, wash one, dry one, wear one. But if you're in a cold, damp winter situation in Peru, your clothes are never fully dry. So yeah, that would be freezing and torturous.
And I had 2 sets of yoga clothes. That's what we were really wearing, like 2 or maybe 2 shirts or something.
So that's even less coverage than if you have a petticoat and layers of a sari.
Yeah, and one of the people I was with had holes in her leggings, holes, and in like no other pants or something. And we finally got approval after like a month to go get her some more, you know.
Wow.
And they didn't want us to really wear saris because we'd stand out too much, so we didn't really wear saris. And we only had a couple of clothes, and I already stood out. One pair of my pants looked like men's pajamas. Yeah. And the other was like those big wide ones, you know. Anyway, I'm digressing, but the point is we had to do this work, and I was with these other people. And at one point, these two were sent out of there, and I think they were going to be with him. And I was in charge of the finance thing. So they were wiring the money to me, but there was one point where it took like a week. We were almost out of money. And these people were kind of crazed because we're inside all day doing this work. So and they wanted some diversion.
What was the work? Like, what work were you doing in Peru?
And we each had our own set of countries. And that's what we were supposed to do all day. And we were supposed to have like Skype and these other services we were using to call, you know. And then when Skype kicked us out because they thought something was going on, you were sharing an account or whatever it was, we had to find other ways to try to make calls to other countries. You know, it was like, and you know, everyone's going a little nuts, you know, and they didn't want us all to go out at once. So they only let 2 or 3 of us go to get groceries. And thank God I was one of them, because I had to get out a little and go for a walk. I was gaining weight.
Yeah.
It's another thing. Like when I went to the ashram in 2013, I was 125 pounds in the US. By the time when I came back to the States in 2018, I was up to like 160. And I've always been super athletic and very active. And to be sitting for 18 hours a day, 15 to 18 hours a day in front of a computer.
Living white rice and butter.
Yeah. And we weren't even allowed at that point to do yoga. One time when I was in Colombia, we had to write day and night what we were doing. And when we didn't report every hour, that was going on other times too. And during that time it was going on. When we wrote one day out of the week, we did yoga. We got in trouble from Ranjita. How dare you do yoga? Well, you know, Swamiji's sitting here, you know, trying to in danger, and you guys are doing yoga. How dare you? Like, we totally got in trouble. I'm like, I'm supposed to be sannyasi, and I don't even get to meditate.
Yeah.
Never got to meditate. We never got to go into any processes, meditate. And we only had to do yoga when they were trying to get into their whole routine to make us like work day and night.
Yeah.
You know, but when we were doing this whole process in South America, we weren't allowed to do yoga until a little later then. That's another thing. God, this is taking really long to tell you.
Okay, no, it's a lot to what you're doing is you're taking us through a decade of your life.
I'm just trying to, I want people to understand that this is not a legitimate spiritual organization.
Right.
It is a cult. And when you're just outside la-di-da watching satsang every day, you are getting benefits, because I did, people do. But once you get in there and you're part of his thing, you're a slave to him.
You're like
a cult.
Yeah.
And if you look up what are the definitions of a cult, what are definitions of mind control, everything that is listed there, I can tell you a story from, you know, my experience.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying to speed it up. I'm not telling you how.
Before we don't worry about speeding up, Lanie. I think what we can do, why don't we do a second video at some where we go through the 20 criteria Dr. Stephen Hassan lays out in the BITE model with corroborating stories. We'll make, like, this is your interview part 1, your journey in the Nithyananda cult. And then part 2 will be red flags and proof that it's a cult, and we'll go through the BITE model for it. That way you don't need to rush through this, because it's important stuff.
I don't want people to waste their life like I did. I mean, essentially it was almost like 10, you know, 8 to 10 years of my life, and you know, prime of my life, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I went in there in my mid-30s, you know, that's like important time in your life. And, and people are younger and they still have a chance, you know, to get out of that and to do something, anything. Anyways.
So Peru, what happens from there? Because I remember you were in Ecuador at one point.
Yeah, then, we were doing all that drama with, you know, these people. And I don't know if I should list out who these people were.
That's up to you. It's,
you know, but if anybody wants to know if a loved one's okay, if I saw them, you know.
That's a good idea. You know what? Maybe we can name them, just so that people, if they don't know where, if like you, they were told, don't tell anybody where you're flying, so your parents don't know you're in Bogota. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, to tell us who was there.
If I can even remember, I'm sure I can, but. Well, because then, we were in Bogota, and then we were sent to Ecuador. And I know he was there. I didn't see him, but I felt like he was there. Like I had that thing you feel like when you know he's around. And the people sometimes would run off to the other house. And like I got there, we were traveling all this time, and we weren't allowed to go to sleep until we did XYZ, you know, again. So like we were traveling, sleeping on the floor of airports and airplanes to try to get there for connecting flights. And then we're not supposed to sleep. You know, it's like, you know, but yet we're sannyasis, we're supposed to be tough, you know. Anyway, then after a day or two of being there, we were told we had to go to the house next door and clean it out. And we had to vacate the house we were in. And so then I knew that was the house where he was. But I never got to see him. Like he was gone already at that point. So I knew he was there because I could feel it, and I knew he was there and he was gone. And I felt like shit. Because like, here's my guru. You know, I miss him terribly. He's my guru. It's like a year I haven't seen him, whatever, you know, or however long it's been. And we don't even get to see him.
You just have to clean up the mess.
Yeah, and it was a damn mess, I'll tell you what. Like the kitchen, stuff was piled, so dirty. How did they make a mess all the time? I don't understand. You know, and I saw stuff there, I was surprised, like in his kitchen, like tomatoes or like garlic, you know, and stuff that we weren't supposed to eat because it wasn't in the agama. But I remember, you know, that kind of thing there. But, you know, of course we couldn't eat it. And there was like, I think cheese even and like stuff, you know, like cookies and shit, you know, it's like, okay. And you can see where he was doing his satsang every night in this one room, because there was like that same, you know, poster board there and all the equipment was there. And so we had to clean up this joint, you know, it was a total disaster, just like everything else, you know, wherever, you know, and there were people there. There were a few other people that weren't with us this other time. And, you know, there were people visiting there that never got to see him actually. So there were probably people that came there to give him money. It was like this guy and his kids, or one or two kids, you know, this family, you know, and they were just there. And so, and then this lady was cooking for us who wasn't a sannyasi, but it was okay to eat her food. Like we were, if people don't know, which they won't, so I'm sorry. Sometimes it's hard to remember where to explain stuff and not, so I do apologize. But up in 2017, he announced, first of all, that sannyasis, and he called even brahmacharyas sannyasis. So we kind of use it interchangeably. I'm sorry, I hope I'm not offending any tradition, but it was just how he did it. So sannyasis and grahastas were people that were married or not sannyasis, basically. We weren't supposed to talk with them. We could talk to them, but we weren't supposed to sleep with them or eat their food, because they're...
Sleep with them means in the same house.
Right.
Just so it's clear, all celibacy vows, but yeah.
Right, sorry. Yeah. We weren't able to sleep on the same dorm room with them anymore. We had to move all our stuff to our own dorm room and our own place. We couldn't associate with them. And we weren't supposed to eat any food cooked by a grahasta, because we'll get their, you know, grahasta energy where, you know, we might get the urge to get married or whatever, you know, their, you know, their lustful thoughts will go into the food. So we weren't allowed, we only had to eat what was cooked by sannyasis. And let me tell you, that was torture. And like when we were traveling and trying to figure out what to eat when you're traveling in an airport, like you're going to get a bag of chips, because what is really vegetarian in the outside world or outside of India?
To order a vegan meal on a flight, but you can't specify that you want a vegan meal prepared by a sannyasi. There aren't. Yeah.
And something without eggs or this or that or without garlic.
I just have to say, as my vegan, like I've been vegan since 1999, it is easy enough to be vegan and travel, but when the added rule is no onion, no garlic, no tomato, no soy because it wasn't in the Bhaga Shastra, no bread because yeast is considered anagamic. Like we weren't just told be strict vegetarians. That would be easy, but the number of food restrictions put on these people: no tomato, no onion, no garlic, no soy, no mushrooms
is a big thing in veganism.
No wheat or corn. Like it was crazy restrictive. So basically you could eat rice, lentils, and the few vegetables that are grown in the ashram, and that's it.
Yeah, there were like, one time when I was in the kitchen, we had to throw away papaya because suddenly it wasn't part of the Bhaga Shastra. Papaya, beautiful papaya, had to go to waste because we weren't allowed to eat it anymore. Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Anyway, where was I? Oh, so we were cleaning up in Ecuador.
Yeah.
And I knew he was there, like I said, blah, blah, blah. And we were there for like maybe a month. And that's when stuff really was getting even more goofy to me. Like where I was feeling like, I don't think I'm cut out for this. Maybe I'm really, not a sannyasi or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because like just the way people were, and there were so many hypocrisies,
Mm-hmm.
and, and then where his room was, only like a couple people were allowed in there. Like we weren't allowed in there at all, because only they were allowed in there to pack up his stuff. And like in there, I saw like a stationary bicycle.
Yeah.
And stuff
It's
like
elliptical
that.
machine, probably.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's just, what I wasn't supposed to see.
Yeah.
So they were packing up all his stuff, and we were cleaning up. And by the way, this was in Bufu, Ecuador. Like, you got off the main airport, and this is like a 2.5 hour ride on some small coastal harbor town, like fishing village. And like these vacation homes that were around there, and there was nothing around. And one day we went for a walk. I was with Lopamudra, and we went for a walk with Yanatma because we just want to get the hell out of there and go for a walk. And, we were walking with her, and she was talking some story about how Prematma Swami always got the attention from Swamiji, and she never did, and stuff like this. She was telling us. Then the next day we were told we couldn't leave the house. We shouldn't be out walking around. People might see us. I mean, there's nobody around. There's like these couple houses, and it was like we were like on house arrest.
I'm pretty sure that was around the time. If this was around September 2019, this would have been around the time that I went public about leaving the cult. And I know when was it?
This was just before that. This was in August.
Okay. Because in one of my videos, I said, if anybody is watching this from Ecuador, look around, and if you see people with dreadlocks wearing orange, report it to the police, because that's his entourage. So if there was an instruction that nobody can go out because locals might see you, it could be because I was saying, keep your eyes open for dreadlocked people wearing orange.
Well, yeah, that was after, so you must have had a premonition.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
There was all this other weird drama, and this one Prema Swami, I don't know if you know her, Prema. She was from LA for a while. She was like instructed not to like eat, and like she was on this weird schedule. She was doing pausing for Sarvanya Pita.
Yeah.
She was supposed to be doing that day and night, and it was only given like a couple hours of sleep, and like she was fasting. And then they were telling people the sannyasis were supposed to take malic acid, like in their water, like I don't know how much, a quarter spoon. And I tried doing it once, and it made me feel all acidy in my system. I'm like, I can't do this crap. I think it was supposed to cleanse you out. And Madhvi was there, and she was talking all about how it cleansed her out and how great she feels. And she's gone weeks without sleeping, and she just does her little program in there, in her little room there. She just does her little manifesting powers program. I mean, it was just bizarre. And like one time, and you know what? Loba Mudra still had asthma, and I thought she was healed from that. But she still would get these bouts where she would have trouble breathing, and she was just kind of listless. She didn't want to do any work. And so it was kind of annoying because we were all busting balls and she didn't want to do nothing. But in the same respect, and we were told, oh, it's just her incompletion. She's being a brat or whatever, But she legitimately had something going on there. And one night the power went out and she was afraid and she was freaking out because it was pitch black. Like everywhere was pitch black because the power went out. And she was scared and freaking out. And Prema was going to yell at her, like, you're a sannyasi, you're one of his. How can you be afraid of some dark? And just making her feel like shit. Yeah. I'm like, and I could see, how she's just like in a way a kid still, even though she's like 19 or 20. She's still
lives a really sheltered ashram life. It's not like a 19-year-old who's a fully grown adult who can go to the bar.
I did in Chicago in college, when I was 19, I think I was getting into bars and going to college,
Yeah, exactly.
Not saying that's great, but she's a kid in a way still, but very sweet, and she was getting yelled at all the time, and you could tell she was like emotionally distraught. And one time she felt like, asked me if I thought she was fat, and I'm like, no, you just maybe, I don't eat a little less. We're not getting much exercise, so whatever, don't worry about it. And she threw everything all over like a kid, like all her clothes, like she wasn't organized. But I think she was mentally, like psychologically, that's like a manifestation.
Yeah.
Of a person who's going through a trauma. They don't know how to keep their things in order, and take care of themselves. She was still kind of, and I'm telling this because I just want her parents to know that I saw her, there, and I was there, and I know that I want to say this, I know that she loved her parents.
Yeah.
Because when we were sent after this to Trinidad, we were there together. And one time I had to walk with her, Lopamudra, to the clinic because she was having stomach problems. She had an ulcer or something. Probably because she was getting tormented by this Ranjita all the time. I remember her talking to Ranjita, and she says, "Oh, I'll talk to him again. I'll talk to him again. Don't worry." And she was like really afraid, like that she was like being dissed or shunned by, Ranjita and Nithyananda, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll talk." And she was like, "I don't," and she would cry, and, she'd be like yelled at and be like really in turmoil, And then one time I had to walk with her because we couldn't go anywhere alone. And plus you wouldn't want to really in Trinidad, but I had to walk with her to go get checked out at the clinic. And on the way there back, I said to her, I go, "Well, what happened with your dad?" Because they were saying he ran away. And then there was like a rumor that he stole money or something. Which, first of all, people, there's no money to steal. They don't have cash.
It's held up in accounts that nobody has access to but Ranjita and Nithyananda. Yeah.
Only they sign the checks. Nobody else has access to it. Nobody. Let's be clear. Even if you needed a freaking rupee to go to the store, you can't get that money. There's no way that guy was stealing. It's a bunch of BS. But I asked her, I go, "Well, what happened?" Because he was I remember very devoted, her father, Darden.
Yeah.
Very devoted to him, just to Nithyananda and all that. And I just couldn't believe that he would have left. Like, I was surprised. I'm like, "Well, what happened?" And she goes, "Oh, I don't really know. I don't really understand what happened, And he was always a good father to us," she told me. It's so sad. He was always a good father and he took care of us. And when I wanted to go to IEA, he put all our family's money together so that I can go because that's what I wanted. And he did it for me. Like, she's telling me this. Yeah. And then after I left, so sad. A couple months later, then all those girls, Nandita and her, they're saying all the stories about him, that they were cheating on each other, they stole from the ashram, they were abusive and whatever. I'm like, I can't. And that's bullshit that Nithyananda and Ranjita were telling them to do, coercing them to do. They tell people to lie. And then it's part of their tyaga, and their tapas to do for him, to prove that they love him. It's such BS because I know that those girls love their parents. And it just breaks my heart because they're good kids. And Nandita, I took care of Nandita, and then when I in the Kumbh Mela and stuff, not Nandita, but the youngest one,
Kalpalata.
Yeah, I took care of her. She's such a cute kid. I mean, they were such really nice kids. I really liked them a lot, and hanging out with them and taking care of them. And just for them to just be fed this lies, and they're so psychologically tortured more than anybody else, those girls. So I feel really horrible, and I wish somebody could like rescue them out of there. But anyway.
No, it's hard, and thank you for sharing that personal story, because I think that all the suffering and heartbreak that Janardana and his wife have gone through, being cursed by their daughters, being called bad parents, having atrocious lies made up about them involving everything from prostitution to extortion to swindling funds. It's nice to know that before those demons, Ranjita and I don't even want to call him Nithyananda, Rajashekaran, before these two demons invaded the minds of their daughters and told them to make up these horrible lies about their parents, that Lopamudra, one-on-one with you, told you her father was always a good father to them. And that's the ultimate truth that will never go away, no matter how much brainwashing
they love their parents. Deep down, I'm sure they still do.
Yeah.
But they're really psychologically and emotionally tortured by them. They don't know if they're coming or going. They're given this privilege to be, his face and all the, whatever on the side goes on. And then in the other respect, just getting berated by Ranjita. And I saw how distraught she was and sick. It made her sick because that's why she had stomach problems. So did Yanatma, because I know that this thing and Prematma had these bad headaches all the time because she was like starving herself half the time. She was probably not getting nutrients, but he was going to take care of her because she was like, living off this like boiled flour thing that she would make with sugar, which I would sometimes have because it was more like pudding. But like you're not getting nutrients, but yet they're just I just don't know. There's so many things to say, but I just wanted to say that about the girls,
Thank you.
Get out.
I might ask somebody to make that into like a shorter clip to publish just on its own. Because it people need to understand, like when they hear us call this a destructive cult, they might say, well, these are grown people making the decision to dedicate their lives to it. That's not the case for these two girls. They were in the Gurukul from the time they were children. I think Lopamudra was 13, Nandita was like 10 when they joined Gurukul. So they have been raised in this organization to believe that the guru is a living God and that Ranjita is his voice. Like she speaks for him. If she gives an instruction, it's from him. And so they are not making their own decision to attack their parents in videos or to even be there. For all we know, their passports have been confiscated. They have no access to social media. They can't just call up their parents and say, hey, sorry about all that shit that I said. Like they are being held captive.
And I think that Nandita was probably held captive in Gujarat because that correlates. That's probably what freaked me out about that whole thing too, is it correlates because there was a point where we had to do some causing in Trinidad for Kalpataru program or something. And we're like, well, why can't we get why can't we get Nandita to do like Akashic readings or something, Oh no, she's in the couple of them looked at each other. No, she can't right now. They kind of looked at each other with kind of a freaky look, like a thing in between.
That would have been while she was being kidnapped.
Yeah, she can't do that right now. She's on a special, what is it they would call a special process, she's not allowed to do that. Yeah. It's like, okay, so stuff like that, like you correlate after when you hear, more from other people what happened, you piece it together. So, yeah.
So I know that when you finally escaped the cult, it was out of Trinidad, not out of Ecuador. So what brought you to Trinidad?
Well, while we were in Ecuador, we were told that we had to go start a women's university in Trinidad. It was going to be, this big, because it's a kshetra over there and there's some special energy, and it was going to be a women's, university for, sannyasis and all this. And we had to go in this drama about what department everyone was going to take and this planning. But yet we were still supposed to do this, getting this embassy. Also, he wanted an embassy and also, political asylum, but then it kind of moved to embassy, getting an embassy. So all that work we had to do. And then we got to Trinidad and there was a woman there who was friends with a devotee, and she was kind of just newly started to follow him, Nithyananda. And she said that we can live in her house, basically. So she had an apartment somebody was renting, and then she had another apartment that they were using and cooking there. They were living there before we got there. There was just like 4 people there living in there. And then she was going to open up the rest of her house, for us to all like live there. She was getting it ready. So we were all first sleeping in this one apartment next to her. And then when she got it ready, she had to do stuff to the house to get it ready, like fix something with the plumbing and something with the water, because they had these big tanks there, kind of. similar to India, but they don't have underground wells. They have these tanks in which the water is pumped into, and that's what gives the house. But there wasn't enough supply or something for all of us. So she had to put us out some money, and she's not a rich woman. She just lost both her parents. She was maybe a middle-aged woman, and she's very nice, you know, and she's did all this work for us out of her pocket because she thought she was helping God's people or something. And then we moved in there. And just, I started to see the way they were just taking like advantage and kind of being abusive with her space, which kind of started to get to me. Like a lot of things at once kind of started to get to me. Like how they treated her, how at night Yanatma would run around yelling at someone on the phone, you know, and this woman's in her room trying to sleep. And how, you know, we were up at late hours and then up really early, and then, you know, using her kitchen and using all her stuff. And she liked stuff to be in a certain order, and, you know, people weren't respectful of her space, you know. And one day, this woman had some little trinkety things. First of all, she had pictures of Jesus and other stuff because her parents were Christian. And I was instructed that I had to go in there and tell her to get rid of those and put them in a box. So that was a little awkward, even though I'm not like a Christian and I wasn't feeling like that, but I still felt awkward because it's her space, you know, but we're Hindus and we're privileged because we're, you know, part of Sadashiva's crew. So I had to have this lady move her stuff, and her parents just, you know, passed away. So she was like trying to sort through stuff. So she was emotional, but I had to go and push her to like speed up the process and whatever. So that was awkward. And then she had some trinkety stuff, like nice china, like decorative pieces, which of course, well, we don't care about material things. One day she found it there laying on a table with incense and like puja stuff, like remnant puja stuff. It was like a hand painted like peacock plate. And this thing was used as like a puja item, all dirty and messed up. And she was really pissed. Like that was towards the end. She was like, I had enough of us. And I'm like, why are you guys doing like I found it, you know, and like cleaned it up. And it was Yanatma who took the thing and used it. Like they don't care about this woman's space.
No.
And like something else broke in the house, and they're like, well, why doesn't she just fix it? You know, it's like, they like act like she was obligated. So all that stuff was going on. And then living with these people, you know, people who think they don't have to, because we all try to do kitchen duty, right? So we'd split the work and work together. And some people felt they didn't have to do it. Then they had a room in this woman's house where nobody can go. Oh, by the way, when we left Ecuador, we had to leave our own suitcase. We can only bring a carry-on suitcase with our items in it. And our 2 carry-ons had to be stuff they packed for him, for his stuff. So I had to leave that there. I mean, it's there somewhere. Like a lot of my stuff is in India.
Wait, you brought Nithyananda's personal items to Trinidad?
Well, I don't know what they were because we weren't allowed to look at it.
Oh, God.
So I don't even know what it was.
You knew then what you know now, because you could have gone through all of that stuff and photo documented it or something. It's because people sometimes ask me when we come out and blow the whistle, why don't we have photos? Why don't we have evidence? And it's because at the time that we were there, we believed in it. So we respected our instructions. We weren't
supposed to look at his stuff. That's his stuff, you know.
But I just find it interesting as far as speculating where he is now, that it's possible some of his personal items got moved to Trinidad.
And so out of respect, we thought it was a big privilege and an honor to like move his stuff. But on the way out of Trinidad, we got stuck in customs. They took us, we were about to get on the flight, and they pulled us out because we went in pieces. We didn't go all together. We went like in 3s or something. So I can't even remember actually. And we had to fly out of a different place because it was cheaper, and I got sick and was throwing up. But that was leaving Ecuador, because it's all kind of getting together. But you know, the point is we had to go through customs, and they went through all of the stuff. Like they opened up the suitcases, and it was all like silver temple items and like jewelry stuff. It was like all like temple-y stuff that we had. And they were going through each thing and looking at it, like opening up the silver, unbubble wrapping it. So we almost missed our flight because, we don't know what's in there. And I could have gotten in trouble for that because I was claiming my luggage.
You're not supposed to board a flight and somebody else packed your bag. That's like travel 101.
Right. And there was like that Yunanjana black stuff and thing, and they're like doing a test on it to see what the hell it is.
Drug.
I mean, I don't know what even was in there. for
None
all
of
I
us do. It's a
know.
spiritual alchemy product. Only Maud Vate knows because she makes the stuff.
And not only that, but all that silver and stuff, you're only supposed to bring a certain amount of things, you know, in other countries.
Precious metals, yeah.
And I had some of his jewelry, like boxes, in my carry-on, the only thing I can bring of my own stuff. And then I still had to put more of his stuff in there. And in a different country, because we had to have a stopover flight in the Caribbean, Curacao or something it's called.
Curacao, yeah.
Curacao, yeah.
Like the booze. Sorry.
What?
Like the booze.
Oh,
Blue curacao. Never mind. A liqueur.
yeah. But I'm bad with certain pronunciations, I guess.
That's okay.
But they looked through my things and asking, what is this jewelry? I'm like, oh, it's personal. You know, we had a lie. Like, I could have got arrested thinking I'm bringing too much jewelry or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're looking through all our stuff, and it was this big drama. And then we get to Trinidad, and all that was going on. So there was all that backstory. They were looking at how to ship his stuff to Trinidad from Ecuador. And, you know, then they had this room in this lady's house where nobody was supposed to go, because we had to give over the things once we got there to this person that was there. And then when we moved into that house, it was all moved to this room, and nobody was allowed in there except for 2 people. And a little bit later, all of a sudden this big flatbed truck comes pulling up, and guess what's on there? A big safe. A safe. Like a big one, like you see in the movies, you know, we're going to rob a bank and the knobs in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
Safe.
Bank vault.
Yeah. And these dudes are bringing this in and putting it on a cart and trying to wheel it, and they trying to jam it to this lady's door.
Oh my God.
So like part of the door got a little screwed up because they're jamming the safe in there. So day and night somebody was supposed to be in there.
Yeah.
What do they have to have a safe for? What? You know? I'll just leave that up to the audience to decide what the safe was for. Then this lady's like, you people are nuts. I want you out of here. Yeah. Pretty much, you know, and these people were driving me nuts. So by this time, I was starting to get antsy, like thinking, maybe I'm not a sannyasi. You know, maybe I should leave. I'm not fit for this, because I can't, you know, if everything's, I'm a mirror, you know, they're a mirror to me, and this is part of me, or it's my incompletion or my karma, I must be just, you know, not cut out to be a sannyasi.
Yeah.
Because I only took sannyasi to be around him. And I don't want to do this mission work. Like, I don't want to call lawyers. I don't want to never meditate or do any physical work. I don't want to go have programs in other people's temples.
Yeah.
Another story, they were taking advantage of this couple who had a temple there. You know, I don't want to do this stuff. And I saw, like, you're not lying to these people, you know. I don't want to do this. I'm not a liar. I can't do this. Like, that was one big thing that was getting to me. And then one day, Yanatma's like, if you don't get 50 people for this next Kalpataru, I'm going to peel your skin.
Oh, great.
I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, you know, I know that a lot of things that people say there, it's all part of your process, right? You're supposed to be unaffected, emotionally unaffected by things like that. You know, and many times stuff like that was said to me, certain things, but that was it. And I'm thinking, Swamiji said, or Swamiji Nithyananda told us to come here, and we're supposed to be friendly and loving towards one another. He's telling us and all this. And these people are so like, what the hell? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm tired of this. And I started like, you know what? I don't know that anything's wrong with me. I said, all this can't be just me. I started to think this now. So now something's turning in here. Like, and I'm tired of these people talking like this. And I forgot to tell you, a year before that, when he opened up the Paramashiva Mandapam in the Golden Temple back in Bidadi, right before he ran out of the country, we were getting ready the night before, and I was given this task to put big panels printed. Remember those big panels that were printed in the temple? I had to get those printed out and installed. And like, I had like a day to do it. And somehow I managed, but the guys didn't come till midnight because they didn't get it done. So they came there at midnight to hang the stuff. And all day I was trying to transfer these big files, and everybody left in publications to go get scriptures someplace. So I was on my own with this project. And what's her name? Priya, what's her name? The goofy one. I can't remember her name. Pranapriya.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Goofy is a very friendly way of saying raving lunatic Bitch
He
monster.
comes up
I
to
don't
me.
usually use the B word, but I'm not saying she as a woman is a bitch, but he turned her into the most abusive.
She was horrific.
Yeah. She was like a demon tormenting people. Like she was cruel. And it seemed like she took delight in making people feel bad.
Yeah, she was horrific.
Pranapriya. Yeah.
Pranapriya. So Pranapriya comes up to me. She goes, "Where were you all day? Were you sleeping?" I'm thinking, what, she's nuts or what?
Yeah.
I'm like, no. And I told her what I was doing. She goes, "Were you sleeping?" And she raised her hand at me like this. "Were you sleeping?" Like she was gonna smack me.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like inside, I was like, what? I was like pissed. I was
Yeah.
like, no way do you do that shit to me.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to keep my cool because there's all these people around. And I was like, no, it was, and that like really got to me. So like I'm there in Trinidad with Yanatma telling me she's going to peel my skin. And then this thing I'm thinking about, all these things that happen. And, how then this one day I saw Paripurna was there. Okay. Right? Paripurna accounting. She wanted to leave. She said something was up with her son and they were talking in Tamil, her and Yanatma, and they were like arguing, how they talk loud anyway. And she wanted to leave. But I didn't really know much about it because I couldn't understand. Then the next day or something like that, it was something like the next day, that apartment next door, she was still staying there and she was cooking for us there. And then we bring the food over, we were helping her cut everything. And she was staying there and like Yanatma was staying there and a couple other people, like the bigger sannyasis. And that day, because my big escape was I'd go out into the backyard. It was like a small backyard, but this huge, huge, beautiful cactus and like a lime tree. These beautiful fresh limes were. So like my connection with nature was like, oh my God, I miss going outside. So I kind of go dick around and like look over there and like pick stuff and, like just to get a little air. And then I heard them yelling at each other from that apartment, Yanatma and Paripurna, yelling at the top of their lungs. It was so loud and it was going on for hours. Yeah. And when I went out there like to check the laundry or do something, I heard the sound like this, like it sounded like someone got hit.
Oh shit.
It was really, and my stomach started to turn. I'm like, what the hell? Like I was nauseous in my stomach because it wasn't right. Them yelling so long like that. So I started to kind of freak out. And during this time also, he told us to watch Wild Country by Osho.
Oh God.
And I watched like a couple of those and I'm like, oh my God. And I was just starting to freak out, and feel like nervous, but yet also at the same time thinking it's just me. I didn't want to be a sannyasi. And I can't remember all the times that I booked flights, and like canceled them. Yeah. But like the first time, like I booked a flight and I went to tell Yanatma, I think I booked it for the next day. And I thought I needed blessings, from him. And I'm trying to remember what order this was in. But I think I went to tell her, like, I'm looking for blessings, from Swamiji because I want to go. I don't think I'm cut out for this anymore. And she's like, what? Where are you going to go? And, I'm like, I'm going to go back. She's like, no, where are you going to go? You're just going to be a clerk somewhere. You're not going to be able to do anything anywhere. You can't even do anything in publications. You failed at everything, blah, blah, blah. And she's going off on me saying that I basically suck and I'm not going to get anywhere in life. I'm just going to be a clerk somewhere and have a shitty life. Why would I want to leave in all this? And I was like, okay. And I felt like shit about myself. I'm like, well, I never did get anything done in publications. Well, yeah. How could I? And so that was going on. And then I wrote to him because I wasn't, getting anywhere with her. And I wrote to him on Facebook. Now, anytime I've written him before, like he's never really responded to me. Occasionally I get a thumbs up from him. And I like sometimes would spill my guts because I thought he's my guru. And since I couldn't talk to him and nobody else wanted to talk to me because they said it's my incompletions and I need to complete, yeah. I felt like, well, I should trust him because I don't trust him enough, they're saying. So I'd write to him and try to get help with something. And he would never write me back. So I wrote to him and I basically said, I don't think I'm asking your blessings to leave because I don't think I'm really cut out to be a sannyasi. I don't think I can handle this. And I told him, I don't appreciate people threatening me. I think that's wrong. We're supposed to be friendly and nonviolent. And Pranapriya raised her hand at me. I told him about that and Yanatma and all those things, you know, and I'm asking please for your blessing, you know, and of course all the things that I thought he's my guru, you know, oh, Yozdir my guru, all this, you know, I love you, whatever, you know, because I thought he's my guru. And I hear nothing. Days go by, you know, and then I tried to leave again, I think, you know, and they talked me out of it. They literally got me in a room, Yanatma, Prematma, and Dhyanatma, and like told me all of these things. Like, if you leave, demons are going to be waiting at the gate for you. He can't protect you if you're not Kavi. You know, you're going to just be like dirty laundry, which they were referring to you.
Me.
Yeah. You're going to turn into her, and you're going to turn against the master, and you're going to lose him, and he's not going to be like your father anymore. All these things. You know, and because around that time, then that's when your videos came up.
Yeah.
And I thought, why in the hell would she make those videos? How is she doing that? Because they trained us so much to not believe anything that you hear. Okay. And think that everything's against him and not believe anything that you hear. And all of it's a lie and everyone's against him and she must be getting paid and whatever nonsense they came up to.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, but there was something in me like, well, why would she do that? She was so dedicated to him. I remember how much you were dedicated to him and you would talk, nothing you wanted to do except please him and stuff. That's all you would talk about. And I'm like, you know, she never once like diverted from that. She was always stunned in her belief of that. So I couldn't understand why you were doing those videos and how you could say that. I was like appalled. But part of me couldn't, because I was roommates with you, you know, and I knew you were like a nice person and it didn't make sense. Like, so that like freaked me out. And then what really got me was Marion, because I know Marion. You know, I traveled with her too. Yeah. And I know she's got kids and a family, you know, and them saying that she was like a drug smuggler and this and her story was a little, it wasn't into the sexual thing so much. So maybe it was a little more like hit home with what I experienced. And I was like, holy shit, you know? So that all kind of got to me, you know? And so they were telling me all this stuff that you're basically screwed if you leave this place, right? You know, and I was just like, I gotta go. And then, so, and they again somehow talked me out of it. Like it was just them in this room with me. And I'm like, well, I gotta go tell the cab guy, because he's probably waiting for me outside. I gotta go tell him I'm not gonna be able to make it, because again, I'm not coming out. And I at least should have the courtesy to tell this guy that I won't be leaving to the airport. So I left the room and I went to go out. And in Trinidad, there's like this lady had a front door and like a area with like a long piece of like iron, you know, with like a gate like they do in India. Yeah. The gate was like a latch, and you know, because they can have open air yet it's still secure. And then there was a driveway, and then the outside there's like an automatic thing you need to open the gate because everything's gated to make it safer there, you know. So I went to go out to tell this dude that I was gonna be there, and so I go to that area where it's gated. We always kept that open, you know. So I go there to open it, and I look up, and there's a padlock on it. A padlock. Shit. Which I never once in like 3-4 weeks or so we were there, I never once saw a padlock on that place. And I'm like, what the hell? And I freaked out because these people are, you know, saying all this weird shit. What's going on? And I was like freaking out. So I ran and I didn't have my shoes because I knew there, the front door, there's a little lock that lady kept locked, but I always went out there, you know, to get flowers and stuff. So I knew it was there, but nobody else used it. So I like freaked out and I ran and I got my stuff, like my computer, you know, my stuff in my little bag. And I ran to that front door and I got out there and I got to the gate and I remembered I didn't have the control. Oh no. And I'm standing there at the gate and I'm just looking at there and I'm looking at that gate and I'm like, should I throw my stuff over and then jump? And right as I was thinking that, they're all around me, these people. Shit. There, Yanatma, Prematma, Mahapurna, like all these people were there surrounded me. And I'm looking, I'm like, what the fuck? You know, and I'm sitting there barefoot with my like suitcase, my little suitcase and my backpack. And they're all like, where are you going, Ovia? What are you doing? why are you going to go? And all this. And I'm like, well, I have a flight. I'm getting, I'm going to leave. And I'm like, no, why don't you, stay, why you want to leave him for? He's done so much for you. Why would you want to leave? He's, been there for you all these years. You've had the Sangha. Why are you going to go? And I just like, and then they're like, well, we're trying to start something new here. We don't want to cause a scene or get the police involved. Why don't you just come inside and we'll talk? Why don't you just do it right and sign the exit papers, and let's just do it right. And, we'll officially do an exit and everything. Mm. And they all were there and they're talking and I'm like, okay, and so then I went back in the house with them. Oh my God. And I'm thinking, what the hell? So then I like calmed down and then they're like all nice to me and like, oh, we'll make chapati your favorite food and all this. And they're all nice. And why do you want to go? And all this. And then like the next day or something, we had called to a meeting in a room. Everybody that lived there was supposed to go in this room and we had a meeting in there. So everybody, except obviously the lady, but everybody, all of us were supposed to go in there. And so we all went in there and we're all sitting on the floor in front of a computer. We couldn't see nothing, but it was like a Zoom, so you can tell. It was Achala, Ranjita, Pranapriya. You couldn't see them, but they could see us. And Achala opens, and Yanatma's right there because she's doing like the thing with the computer. So we're all sitting there, and Achala, Achala goes, there's a traitor in our midst. One of you is a traitor and went against, Swamiji and blah, blah, blah. She's freaking saying all this stuff, like really, how she can talk. Ma Achala can like shake the dead, the way she speaks, like in such a venomous, scary, like energy, she has. And the way she was talking, and I felt sick in my stomach. I'm like, oh my God, because I want to leave. They're saying this or what? Like I was thinking, I didn't know. So I was in fear and my stomach was turning. And then all of a sudden they said, Yanatma, you left, he kicked you out of his presence because you're a traitor and you're abusive to him.
They weren't even talking about you.
No.
Oh.
And then they proceeded to say all this weird stuff. Did you touch Ovia's feet and apologize because she wants to leave? Because Achala goes, Ovi, you never wanted to leave Swamiji until you had to live with the Yanatma bitch.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, no, I never thought about leaving that much. I never thought about leaving till now,
Yeah.
And did she touch your feet and ask forgiveness? I'm like, well, no, like this is new to me. Yanatma tried to talk to me one night and ask them, why I want to leave, and it's okay. That's the very reason you should be sannyasi, because you love him and you want to be around him. That's the only reason to take sannyasi. That's what she kept telling me. Yeah. Another tactic they were using to try to keep me there.
Yeah.
And that's another story. But anyhow, so they're saying this, and then they're saying that bitch Yanatma and all this, and I'm like, what kind of talk is this? Like I heard about stories about them yelling at each other and doing this ugly stuff, but like, and I heard some really bad stuff, and I'm like, okay, and then I would bought into that's all the spiritual process and stuff. But when it was happening in my presence, finally, I was like, this is weird. Because I heard yelling and people called names and all that, and in Tamil. And I got berated by him in public in front of all the yoga, Nithyananda yoga participants. He yelled at me and berated me. So I got all that, but this was different somehow.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they go, she's been watching movies while she's supposed to be looking and getting Swamiji out of his problems and getting political asylum. She's been masturbating. That's what they said. Oh, and I think they're referring to like outside things, are like,
oh yeah.
But I don't know, that was still weird to put it in that term, that she was masturbating. And
well, that's a word that Nithya loves to use, because I remember he attacked the whistleblowers by calling us violent, vomiting, masturbators.
Yeah.
Like he uses that word a lot. It's so ridiculous. He's so obsessed with sex.
Yeah. It's gross, dude. And I'm like, this is really feels wrong. Like we're all sannyasis and maybe stuff's weird. And she's been in, like getting berated left and right and whatever, and then yelling at other people, acting like she's an idiot, and just yelling at people all the time at the top of her lungs, you know, on the phone.
Well, she
And then,
treats them the way Nithya and Ranjita treat her.
yeah.
It's like,
So like she picks up that and then thinks that she's got the license to do that because she's part of his whatever.
yeah.
So, and she's just sitting there like this. I don't know. I don't feel anything. They're like, you're going to lose Kavi if Ovia leaves. Didn't you tell her that? And she's just like, you know, she didn't know what to do. Like, she's probably emotionless, actually. She's just probably like a dead shell inside.
Absolutely. Yeah. A person can only go through so much trauma before they shut down.
Like, I think she was at that point shutting down or what, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But they were saying all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, Nithyananda gets on. And he's like, yeah, that bitch Yanatma, and starts saying that to her. And I'm thinking, this is fucked up.
Holy.
And then he starts saying to Ma Yoga, the reason I didn't have you around me is because I knew you couldn't get along with her, the way she treats you and stuff like that. And that's why I didn't have you with me. But you're going to be with me soon, and you'll be around me always.
Ma Yoga Swami, as in Vanessa?
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard of where she even was in the world.
Now, I mean, God knows where they are now.
Wow.
But she, I mean, at that time, you know, of course, she was probably informing Ranjita about everything.
Yeah.
But she was kind of on the outskirts of all that. She wasn't necessarily involved in a lot of this planning things that the other ones were. And she was like always trying to be nice to me. You know, like
I love her. I love Vanessa. I'd love to see her get free.
And that's another story. But I think if she wasn't brainwashed, I mean, she's just a nice girl, you know. And she's really sweet, and she's got like that motherly, caring, you know, South American, like embracing everybody. You know, like they're very friendly people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And they're very welcoming to people, and they're very helpful. Like when we were in Peru, and so people are helpful. She's Venezuelan, I believe.
Yeah, Venezuelan.
But just in general, I find that, you know, and so she's got that really sweet kind of personality.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's saying that to her, and she was, of course, all gaga, you know, because I'm talking to her, and she's like melting. And then she says, Ovia, then he starts talking to me and says, Ovia, you know, you don't worry. You know, just stay with us and just do completion, you know, just do completion and you'll be around me and you'll have a happy life around me. That's what he said. And of course, at that point, I was like, oh, you know, I was like so happy. And then, before that, I wanted to tell you, they read before he got on.
Yeah.
And Achala was saying there's a traitor in your midst. They read the letter that I Facebooked to Nithyananda.
Uh-huh.
So they read it all out loud to everybody. So they all knew what I wrote, and I was trying to leave.
Yeah.
So at first I thought, oh God, they're going to berate me for this. But of course, you know, it's like a big drama.
Yeah.
So then after that meeting, you know, they were all trying to be nice to me. And like, that's when they were like cooking nice. And
that's the love bombing. I've gone through that too. Yeah.
But it didn't last long. No. You know, it was lasting like a day or whatever. You know?
Yeah.
So then after that, I think is what happened with Paripurna. That's when I think that happened and all that was going on, because then, you know, it's hard to remember the exact, you know, timeline.
Yeah.
Because she was happy to cook for me. Because then after she went into that thing, she was like on house arrest in her little apartment. She couldn't leave after she had that yelling match. And we had to take turns going in there to sit at the kitchen while she was in the room.
Wow.
Like she was locked up in that room. I don't know if she was locked in there, but she didn't want to come out. She was in, and then later she said she was in a depression for a few days. She was having a heart thing, and she was like having her own incompletion, and she came out of it.
Yeah.
But it's like we had to like guard her to make sure she didn't go out of there.
Yeah.
Which was weird.
Yeah.
So then all that, and I wanted to go, and I tried, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And then then that lady gave us an ultimatum and said we had to get out of there. So we had a week to get out of there. And we had to find another place. And then some truck came again and took the safe out.
Wow. And
then we had to schlep all our stuff and move to some other place, not too far away, some other house, you know, big house with several bedrooms. And, you know, and stuff was still weird, you know, and it was hard living with all these people because everyone was going through their own shit, you know, probably psychological stuff and all, but it was just difficult, you know. And then Yanatma was on something where she had to wash all our clothes. Like,
of course, he'll punish her.
yeah, she was on some Chitta. She
Yeah.
wasn't supposed to talk, and she was supposed to wash our clothes and clean and do all this stuff. And then we were supposed to be mean to her.
Oh my God.
Another thing, we were like supposed to be mean. And part of me, I didn't want to be around her anyway because she grossed me out.
Yeah.
Like, she was just gross, like, after that to me. Like, I really looked up to her, but after I heard the way she spoke to me and how I saw her treat other people, and like she's got a strong breath. Like, I know she brushes her teeth. Like, I just, energy feel, like, I just didn't want her around me, you know? So I didn't want to really talk to her, but I also felt bad for her too. Like, I didn't want to yell at her. What kind of thing is that, you know? And so she was supposed to be like the slave, you know? So I was still contemplating leaving, and I was still confused. And I, you know, tried to, whatever. So there's more details, you know, and then they didn't bother me to do much work because I wasn't doing shit. I'm not calling these lawyers anymore, you know. So I was just doing my own thing, and they were like kind of looking to see what I was doing and stuff. And then we started to have to go to this temple that this devotees were letting us use to do our work there. We weren't allowed to stay in the house every day, so we had to have this shuttle take us there. And one day I was helping Guru Swatika cook something, and all of a sudden they come up running around looking for Paripurna. Where is she? I'm like, we don't know. We've just been cooking up here for you guys, you know, because we're sannyasis. We have to cook. And there was a program going to be happening or something. And she was just like gone. Like, we saw her come with us that day on the shuttle, but then she was just like gone.
Wow.
So they went to go look for her. I heard them say they were going to the airport, a few of them, to go look for her.
Oh shit.
Like, okay. So that was weird, you know? And then finally at some point, like, I just couldn't handle it anymore, and shit was just too weird for me. And I wasn't happy. I wasn't able to do anything. I just couldn't get into any of it anymore. But I still believed he was my guru. I just felt like it was something wrong with me. No, I was starting to come out of that, actually. Like, because I actually was thinking, this can't all be me. Part of me was thinking that this all can't be just my fault all the time. And I was like really patient with myself. Like, I really learned, like, hey, you know, you're okay.
Wow.
You know, just having patience with myself for the first time.
Good for you. That's a big shift to go from feeling like your space created all the external difficulties to realizing, wait a minute, I couldn't have possibly made this big of a shit storm. Like,
yeah. So I was thinking that, and I'm like, and then one day, like, I just booked a flight, and I was talking to somebody else, you know, back home that was listening to me. And there was another person who left and joined a different guru, but that person actually was really helpful, even though she joined another guru, whatever, that's fine. But she's like, you know what? The universe loves you no matter what you do. Basically, like, in a nutshell, that's what she said. But it was really helpful to hear that coming from her.
Did that go to Vishwananda?
Huh?
Did this person go to Swami Vish? I think I know who you mean, because she sent me a message just saying that she was proud of me for speaking out, which was really nice. She was one of the.
There's a lot of people that went to her, or that went to him, so I don't know if it's the same person.
I'll tell you after this recording. I'll check.
Yeah, but coming from her, because I really always liked her, and I told her some shitty stuff. Like, I bitched her out for, like, leaving and whatever. And then I'm like, you know what? I want to complete with you.
Yeah.
In those terms. But I really liked her, and we got along really well. And I really connected with her as a person. Like, I think that we would have been friends, like, in a different, you know, and I'm really sorry about all that, the way I acted to you, you know, and I wish you the best. And then we had a little thing. And then I told her, they're trying to tell me that I'll never get enlightened, and that I'll, you know, this and that, bad things will happen if I leave and all this. And she was just basically another voice, like, saying, hey, you know, don't worry about it. She still believes you need a guru's grace to have enlightenment.
Yeah.
But she did tell me that that I'm blessed by the universe still. It doesn't matter where I am, you know, that I'm loved, basically. So it was really helpful. So I booked my flight for the millionth time.
Yeah.
One night, and I'm like, I'm just going to go when these people are sleeping. You know, they should be sleeping. You know, and I'll just leave in the middle of the night because I can't deal with it. These people won't let me leave. you know. And at 1 a.m, I couldn't get a cab because like after 10, I guess kind of everything shuts down in Trinidad because it's kind of a dangerous country, which I didn't realize it would be that difficult because like I had a 6 a.m. flight or something. And I just took a flight to some Caribbean island that was an hour away just to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
You know, it was a cheap flight and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just had to get out of there. And well, I couldn't get a cab. So luckily I was able to change my flight again. I was like, God, I'm just going to have to do it in broad daylight, you know, screw it. So I booked it for the next afternoon, like 4 or 5, because it was the only other flight.
Yeah.
And so in the morning, they're all getting ready to leave. And I'm just sitting there in my pants, whatever I had that was sort of outside, you know, pants, tunic shirt, just sitting at my computer, like everything else was ready to go. And they're like, why aren't you coming? I'm not going. What? And then all this drama hit. Okay. You know, oh, come on, Ovi, you got to go with us. And let's go and talk over there and all this. I'm like, nope, I'm not, I'm leaving. So they all, and then, you know, Maud Fate's yelling, I have to do my program. What are you guys doing? We have to, you know, of course, it's all about her.
Yeah.
And so they're all trying to get me. And then I go into my room because I just want to get away from them, the room I was sharing with a couple other people. And the Yanatma comes in there and touches my feet. Right?
Okay.
She goes, oh, yeah, I appreciate you. You shouldn't go. And she's trying to be all nice to me. I'm like, you're disgusting. I'm thinking,
yeah.
I can't believe I looked up to you and all this time and you're just a snake too, you know. And I'm like, don't, you know, no. And then Prema comes in there trying to talk to me, you know, and asking me, oh, when's your flight? I don't believe you're really going back. Like she was trying to coerce me to get me to tell her more information. And I wasn't. There was something in me that was like, I'm not telling these people anything. So they all left except Prematma, remember Bhairava Priya? She was there, and this lady, and her son. Yeah, she, and I knew she can be a demon because I saw her hit somebody too.
Oh my God.
But she was always nice to me.
Yeah.
Like for whatever reason, you know, I still feel that she's somewhere in there. She's a good kid too, you know. Kid, she's probably almost 30 by now.
Yeah.
But they're all good people inside, you know, somewhere. But anyhow, so they were out there and I heard them talking and Tama laughing, and you know how they clap really loud?
Yeah.
They're making fun of something.
When they laugh. Yeah.
And they laugh and they're like making fun of something and they're really talking loud. And I'm like, oh shit. You know, I had a feeling they're talking about me. It was just that lady, her kid, and those two people. So I'm like, I'm getting the hell out of here. I already got my cab set up. It was coming in 30 minutes. I'm like, I'm out of here now. So I go and I take my stuff and I go to the front door and I turn the thing and I turn the bottom thing and I pull it and it's stuck.
Oh no.
I'm like, here we go again. I'm like, you gotta be shitting me, I'm thinking. I'm like, this damn door's stuck, it ain't opening. And I look and there's another deadbolt that needs a key, which we never used, ever, never. I didn't even know there was a lock there because we never used it and I never noticed it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to open this door and then Bhairava Priya comes running with a phone. It's Akka, she wants to talk to you, it's Akka. And I'm thinking, I said, why is this door locked? Yeah. I said, you guys had better open up this door. And they're like, no, it's okay. You just talk to Akka. I'm like, I'm not talking to nobody till you unlock this door. And I started to flip out because I'm freaking out. I mean, these people are locking me in here. Yeah. So, and they kind of looked at each other real nervous and stuff. And they're like, well, we just lock it because we're alone in the day. I'm like, bull. I go, you never lock this door. I go, open it up right now. And I'm like really spazzing out. And finally they come running with the key and they open up the door and I hightailed it out of there. And I got to the street, you know, and I'm standing there on the street outside of everything with my suitcase. And then she comes running with the phone and I picked it in Saka, Ranjita. And I already spoke to her once or twice, and I spoke to Pranapriya once too, who claims to not remember raising her hand at me. Huh. And I had all the song and dance and with them, and Ranjita's like, why are you leaving? You said you're gonna stay and do a completion and all. And like, I just can't, I don't think I can manage, I have to go, you know? And she's like, well, you know, he can't protect you once you leave. And I'm like, what do you mean? I said, he always protects us. And he's like, well, you know what? Because she tried telling me some spiel about my horoscope. Uh-huh. And she goes, you know, I told you about your horoscope. Help me, I can't remember. She goes, you can't, you know, your horoscope's bad, and what's his name? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Nithya?
Yeah, the deity that he's always
Kalabaira?
Thank you. Oh my God. I'm totally having a brain.
Oh.
Like Kalabaira said that your horoscope is bad, your alignment is bad for the next few months. You know, you have to stay there. You're not going to be protected and all this. And I was already told by them so many things, and even there's legal things happening that I shouldn't leave, especially with what's going on with dirty laundry right now and all. They told me all this stuff not to leave. And now she's telling me it's my horoscope. I'm like, well, Swamiji said that sannyasis don't have to worry about their horoscope anymore. He's taken away their karma and blessed them. So why do I have to worry about my horoscope? Well, no, this, you know, and she just had some whatever excuse to get around it, you know. Well, it's not like something bad's going to happen. It's not like when you're crossing the street, you know, you're going to get hit by a car. But you might not see the car around the corner, you know, that's coming, and you might not see, or, you know, she's trying to make us a fear tactic. Yeah. And then I'm listening to this and I'm like, whatever. I'm just thinking now, like my listening was going out the window. Yeah. You know? And then I'm like, that's fine. Swamiji's still my guru, and I'll talk to him how I always do, which means I'll talk to his Murti or talk to him like we always do, because we never get to see him or actually have a relationship with him. Yeah. Some people do, but most people don't have to get a relationship with him, really. And so, but I'll just talk to him like I always do, because I still believed he was my guru. And then she's like, what do you mean? She starts yelling, what do you mean you want to talk to him? I can't let you talk to him. I don't think I can make that happen. I go, hey, take it easy. I never said I wanted to talk to him. And I actually said that. Yeah. I thought to say some other things to her at that time, but, you know, I'm like, I never said that. I said that I just was going to talk to him in my own way, like I normally do. She's like, oh. And I was just done with her. I'm like, whatever. And I'm like, I can't hear her anymore. I gave the phone. I'm not talking to her anymore. All the things that she said to me, mean things, and to scare me, like saying she's going to cut off my jetta when I'm sleeping. And like, right. Yeah. I think I was still there when she made that threat to you, that she'll cut your jettas off in your sleep. Yeah, that's when we were in Kumbh Mela. I remember that. Mean, weird stuff, and then doing these mind games with me to make me kind of be open to her and be honest and know stuff, and then terrorists and rip you a new one, you know. So anyway, the cab came finally, and I put my stuff. The guy helped me, and right before I got in the cab, I'm looking at these people. I spent like years with these people, right? And I just went, you know, Nithyananda, because this is what we do, you know. And I thought, let me have some, you know, I lived with them. And they looked at me like this. Oh my God. Dead face, like evil looks. And I'm just like, okay, this is freaking weird. And I just got in that cab and I told the guy, just go. And I like looking behind me the whole time to the airport. I was like freaking out, actually. I thought they were going to come after me like they did with Paripurna. So I was shitting bricks because I had to wait like 5 hours. Did they eventually find Paripurna and drag her back when they went to the airport to look for her? I don't know. They just told us later because we asked, but we weren't supposed to ask, but we wanted to know if she's okay at least. Oh, she's okay, but I think she got away. I hope so. Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, so I was in the airport and I called my friend and I'm like, dude, I'm out, but I'm afraid they're going to come looking for me. You know, and there's nothing to do in that airport. There's nothing there. I couldn't even buy new clothes there, you know. So finally I got into my flight and got out of there, you know. Wow. But it took me months to realize that he was like a total counterfeit guru. Like, and I never once watched that video until I got out. Like, I believed that I shouldn't watch it, that it'll hurt my spiritual growth. And when I watched that video, I'm like, that's totally not morph. That's them. Because they're so comfortable with each other. It's like two people who really know each other and they're like buddies, and yet there's something else, you know? Well, and back in 2009, there was no deep fake technology. People couldn't morph a video. Well, to me, it looked just like them and his mannerisms, how he speaks, because I spent a lot of time looking at his pictures because I had to post them on the website. Yeah. And I spent a lot of time studying him just because being a creative person and whatever, he's my guru and whatever thoughts I had about him being an enlightened master. You know, I spend a lot of time studying his movements. Yeah. And that video, those videos, I'm like, I can't believe this shit. If I watched it before, I would have known. Yeah. That's him.
And that's why they told all of us never watch it.
Yeah.
Back when I was in, I never watched it either.
And even when we were putting all that material together, because I'd have to watch all, I'm going to put all that material together about it and how they're framing him. And who cares what this little Hindu guru guy is doing in India? The Vatican's going to come after him.
Oh, yeah.
These political groups in India are going to really go after this guy. They're not going after him because he's a guru and wants to give people powerfulness and enlightenment, but because he's a crook.
Yep.
Who cares? Nobody knows who he is. Like, just to say that the Vatican and all these outside forces are trying to get him is just utter BS. And 80 times he was assassinated. Come on.
They claimed, I think 3 of those times they claim I tried to kill him.
Yeah.
Like,
and I remember you saying how proud and happy you were because you came back from Canada and you had all this great chocolate. And I was kind of pissed because you're like, he handed out my chocolate to everybody and he loved it and he was so happy. I'm like, that sucks. I never get to have those moments with him, but okay. Like I felt a little bad, Like,
I think it was or Priya, it was one of their birthdays. So he called us all into his room because I brought the chocolate for those girls for their birthday. I didn't bring it for him. But they said I can't eat it unless it's from his hand. So I got called up to his room. And they were both sitting with him, so I had to give it to him so he could break it off into pieces and give to them. And obviously I got some too because I was there. Right. And it's like if I was what he said at that time when I came out was that I was hired by the CIA as an assassin to kill him. For one thing, I'm like a tarot card reader from Canada. Like, we don't get recruited into the CIA. That's not like.
And let me tell you, if the CIA had wind of him and even knew who the hell he was, they'd grab his ass and arrest him.
He'd be arrested. Well,
yeah, and the CIA is not going to play around with some girl,
No, an assassin doesn't eat the poison herself. Like, if that had been a poisoned chocolate bar, I wouldn't have eaten it too. And then bragged to everybody that I got to eat chocolate with him.
Yeah, and told me all about it.
Told you all about it.
That's why some of these stories, and I had to read all some of these stories, and I'm like, okay.
Wait a minute.
And there's so many other millions of things I can tell you about what there were red flags and totally screwed up things. But the point is, I'm out of there. Yeah. And I've woken up from it all. And I urge people, because I can tell you stories from, like I said, all of those things. Yeah. There's not a conspiracy against Hinduism. There's not a conspiracy against enlightenment. There's not a conspiracy against Nithyananda except himself and his own actions. Yeah. And then he's hurting people and children, especially those sweet Gurukul kids, and the things that I've heard from various sources after getting out of there, it's sickening, and it turns my stomach because I got to spend time with those kids and they're such sweeties. And it's horrific, like that anybody, and that I was involved in something like that. And I'm, very sorry to anybody who, if anyone even listened to me ever and got in there because of me, but, I believed it, hook, line, and sinker, and I just pray that these people come out of it and they can live a normal life and be happy. They're not, I'm happy as hell to be out of there and living a good life, and I have more respect for myself now and more powerfulness now than I ever had in my life. And especially there, I was a powerless person because I was completely beat down psychologically, emotionally, physically all the time, like physically, sleep, food issues, whatever. And I feel powerful that I got out of there. Like I took that step for myself because I do love myself in my life to get out of a situation like that. And I believe that anybody else that is stuck in there can get out and be happy too, and be welcomed back into society or make their own way. And if anybody feels that their family won't take them back because the way families might be, they might be mad and not want to take you, then you send me a message and I'll find somebody that will help you. Because I don't feel that anybody should have to be tortured in that thing, in that place, and feel they're no good, because everybody's worth something. Everybody, is a good person and deserves a good life. Yeah. So.
Wow. Thank you, Lanie. Yeah. And I second that. Like if anybody who knew us while we were in the cult is still stuck there and hears this and relates to it and thinks, well, I also wanted to leave but was afraid of this, or was held back because of that, or Ranjita convinced me to stay for this reason or that reason, whatever it might be, like the door is always open on our side.
Yeah. I mean, I'll do what I can, at least get somebody in your area or in India that'll be willing to help you, because I know that there's ex-devotees there that will help. You know, I know things are harder maybe in India, you know, for people who came from smaller towns and stuff. I don't know, you know, here it's, you know, I'm able to work. I have a job, a nice job now. And
You're not a clerk.
I'm not a clerk. I'm working at a really great architectural company,
Yeah.
you know, and like, I know that there's hope for everybody to bring their life back together, for sure. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lanie. And let's make this part 1 of 2 next time we get on Zoom.
I hope people can listen to the whole thing.
I think some people will. They might have to break it up an hour a day, but yeah. But I think everything you said had a reason it had to be said. And people living that horror show of a life will be able to relate to different aspects of your story. And this could be the wake-up call they need. So thank you for sharing.
Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. All right. So I'm going to end the recording now, but we'll do this again soon. And to all the viewers who stuck with us this whole time, thank you for your continued interest in our plight to put an end to the abusive, destructive cult named after the fraud who calls himself Nithyananda.